Well, good evening, good evening, good evening to all of the loyal opposition. What a pleasure to have all of you joining us again this evening, again, Monday, April the 29th. And let me take this opportunity to wish all of you belated National Heroes Day. Greetings from myself and the team here on this special occasion, National Heroes Day. We celebrate some those who have had a significant contribution to our country in one way or the other. And we are grateful for how God has blessed us with some great men and women. And so we are here tonight with the loyal opposition. And my goodness, again, I'm looking at my schedule here on the screen, and I'm seeing some people that I don't know if my clock is telling me the right time here, but I'm seeing some people since 2:25. Geraldine King, good evening, Geraldine, and Junie Rock 2:47, Beijing Boy 3:27, FX Trading BB 4:15 p.m. You guys don't make any fun at all, boy. You take these things really serious, and that's really good. I don't mind I'm laughing because you know that there are times I begin quite hostile and quite hot. So if you get me beginning this evening with a smile, that's not a very bad thing. And that's a pretty good thing. But we're looking forward to a great night tonight. It's a real joy to have all of you joining us, Gel Biz, and I'll come back to name a number of you. But it's a real joy to have all of you with us, and honor, as I've always said, for me to be co-hosting the show tonight with Marcia. It is always a tremendous pleasure to be on with our entire gambit of contributors to this great platform. And tonight we want to continue dealing with the matter of the cybercrime bill, and because it's a very serious matter. It's an extremely serious matter because it will have long-reaching, long-term effects on all of us, every single one of us. So we want to address it tonight. Take some of your questions, and I'll try to do my best to keep an eye on the chat to see where it comes up, and to try my best to add those aspects with you as we go through the night. Of course, we want to, and I want to be clear on this. This show is not against the cybercrime bill per se, but we are against some components of it. And I don't care who speaks on the matter. I don't care who addresses the matter from some position in the country. And I'm being very careful because I have sent in a message. I have sent an email in to the committee for a oral presentation in which I will deal with certain things when I make that oral presentation. But I want to be very careful because I am not going to call any names yet. I'm going to call some names a little later on of some persons that I feel deeply disappointed in, and talking some aspects that are conveniently hypocritical in the context of things they share, and some members of parliament who don't seem to understand or know or want to admit what freedom of speech is. And anybody who would want to suggest that there is a dramatic difference between freedom of speech and freedom of expression is ignorant of the articles relative to the articles of human rights. And we'll delve into that in just a couple of minutes as I share with you and others. We're going to be having, a pretty full panel grouping tonight, because we want everybody to be in on this and everybody to contribute. Amen. So really great to have all of you. Now, let me try and welcome some of you because I saw someone from the United Kingdom. So let me try and give some names here. Nat Grant, Noel, good to have you. Clyde Osborne, a pleasure to have you back with us again tonight. Tyrone Blackman and Pauline Maynard, Lena Bell, of course, my wonderful individual that helps me so much to make sure I play the national anthem. Marcia, blessings to you. Thank you. So good to be known, to be good to be seen, if you want me to put it that way. Thank you, Marcia. Really appreciate you so very much. And Pauline, Noel, Cynthia Thorpe, Lucinda Aline, Euclid King, hi to you too, sir. Sandra Franklin, pleasure to have you on with us tonight. Good night to all of the loyal patriots who did not drink the Kool-Aid. Okay, okay, okay. Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, Sandra. Really good to hear you guys. Ryan Rock, good night to the loyal opposition family. Looking forward to another great show, keeping the pressure on, making a difference in a very positive way in our country, Barbados. And as you know, this show is dealing with the facts. We are not partisan. We are going to be critical of the Democratic Labour Party, the Barbados Labour Party, the APP, or any entity that does not represent truth. There's a saying in the good book, the Bible, that says you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. And so we are free. We have nothing to hide. I have no aspirations. Marcia has no aspirations. Glyne, Maxine, and Caswell. We are just concerned about the well-being of our country. James, great to have you with us again tonight as well. Sanchez, Sir Alfred Benjamin. I don't know what I would do without you, sir, being on the platform. It's really nice to see you again here, Brooklyn, New York City. And I hope I get the chance to come in. You know, I'm preparing some promotional stuff. As many of you know, I'm a singer, and I really want to get back to my music. I love to sing. I love to touch the lives of people with my music and with the talent and ability that God has given to me. And I want to try to get back to that, where I can bless the lives of people, especially in the times that they're going through, where I can give a song of hope and inspiration to them. And so I want to get back to that, Sir Alfred. So who knows? I may be in your space. I was in New York several years ago at the what Crystal Cathedral, I think it was, or something like that. And then I was at another church in New York, where my good friend that was formerly with Guyana, from Guyana, one of the ministers that used to minister many years ago in Barbados. He has a church there in New York. I've been there as well. And I'm looking forward to getting back, and doing some ministry there and sharing my music. Hopefully I can get some kind of a sponsorship to do some right here in Barbados as well, that can be a blessing to the lives of people. So it's really great to have all of you joining us again tonight. DaCosta Fields, Rhonda Norville, Judith and Clark, good night to you too. Colin Clark, Beverly Prescott. And listen, don't forget, share. Quickly, we are only at 7:07. We're up to 432 people already. And yes, Colin Clark, good night to you from Birmingham, United Kingdom. I've been there in the United Kingdom a few times on my way to Munich when I worked with BMW here, BS&T Motors and Detco Motors. At that time, I was the account executive for BMW in Barbados. And many, many years ago, 1977, I was in Romford, where we purchased a Triumph Stag from my mom. So I have a little bit of familiarity with the UK. So really great to have you calling with us from the UK, DaCosta. Now, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name. Is Mikhail. I don't know how, and I'm not going to what to say. I'm not going to mess up all your name. I'm just going to leave it at good night to you. Okay, I'm not going to chew your name up and not get it right. So I'm going to hesitate to try to call it. Marion Griffith, great to have you with us. Rhonda Norville, real pleasure to have all of you joining us tonight. And listen, we're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to continue pushing the matter of the cybercrime, because this really and truly, everything hangs on this bill, including this program, including brass tacks, freedoms of expression, freedoms of speech. All of these things hang on this bill. And there are aspects to this bill that are deeply concerning. When my colleagues join me later on tonight, we'll be dealing with a number of these things. But I want to be clear on the fact that, I've sat over the last several days listening to some videos and reading some articles up to last night. I was on the show. You all wouldn't have known that. I was watching it, and I heard some comments made by our prime minister when she was leader of the opposition, that was speaking to matters to do with the arbitrarily taking away the rights of people, when she accused the then Frundle Stewart administration with regards to the amendments to the Police Act, which they were proposing at that time. And I had to say, it's amazing how your words come back to bite you, because here you are coming back now with a bill that is seeking to do exactly what you criticized the Frontal Stewart administration of attempting to do. That is arbitrarily taking away the rights of the people of Barbados and the freedoms. And these are not the rights and freedoms that we conceive, think, or conspiracy ideas or anything of the sort. This has to do with fact. All right. So we'll be talking about that tonight as well. Joshua, great to have you with us. You feel that mental health is something that Barbados has to start dealing with, because you can have a modern looking society and a brain not good, then nothing. Yes, sir. You're so true. Some years ago, as I can't remember if I mentioned it on this program before, but I was coming up over the brow of the hill leading down to the Buster statue, passing the Barbados Water Authority. And I heard a voice say to me, the chains are still on his hands. The chains are still on his hands. The chains are still on his hands. And I was wondering, why am I hearing this phrase going through my head all the time? And as I approached, all of a sudden, the statue of Bussell loomed in front of me, and I saw his hands outstretched, lifted up, but the chains were hanging. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice speak to me and say, "You may be free politically and economically, but emotionally, mentally, you're still imprisoned." And it is a fact. We are still imprisoned to a colonialistic thinking, where we can see aspects of government functioning like the I can't remember what type of a slave they call it right now, but some of you, I'm sure, will remind me. Adrian X, God bless you too. Great to have you. Thank you for posting, sir, on Tumblr, TikTok, X, Telegram, and Snapchat. I haven't even heard of those, Adrian, but thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you, Adrian. And I want to encourage all of you to do the same thing Adrian has done. Post it, get it out there, that Barbadians can, of all walks of life, and the diaspora, wherever they're located, can be a part of what is happening in their country and be contributing to the development and well-being of their country. So we are really happy to have all of you joining with us tonight. Now, before I get any further, I'm going to get over here on my computer, because I know that I'm going to get a message very shortly that will tell me it's time for the national anthem. So, ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Barbados.
Right.
All right, all right, all right. Thank God. I like that. That I tell you, national anthem we have coming to us from Barbados, and I like the line that says "strict guardians of our heritage." We have a heritage, and we need desperately to protect it, to guard it, and ensure that nothing happens where that heritage is concerned that will threaten the well-being of our country. And so, we are here tonight to do exactly that. We're here to defend our country. We are here to defend the well-being of our nation, the freedoms of our people, the capacities of our nation, and our people's rights to express themselves in speech and expression. All right, in speech and expression. I've heard a ludicrous perspective of one of our members of parliament suggesting that there is a difference between some nonsense about us having let me make sure I get this right, about us having the right to freedom of speech. It's not this freedom of speech is not the same thing as freedom of expression. Well, having heard that, I decided to look up the Charter of Human Rights relating to the matter. And I discovered that Article 10 speaks of the protection of your right to hold your own opinions and to express them freely without government interference. This includes the right to express your views aloud, for example, through public protest and demonstration, or through published articles, books or leaflets, television or radio broadcasting, works of art, the internet, and social media. The law also protects your freedom to receive information from other people by, for example, being part of an audience or reading an example. Now, there are some restrictions to the right of freedom of expression. Although freedom of expression, you also have a duty to behave responsibly and to respect other people's rights. Public authorities may restrict this right if they can show that their action is lawful, necessary, and proportionate. That's a very operational word there, the word proportionate, in order to protect national security, territorial integrity, or public safety. 2, to prevent disorder or crime. 3, to protect health or morals. 4, to protect the rights and reputations of other people. 5, which we already have in place with the Defamation Act, and I don't know details of it, but I know the protection is already there. Prevent the disclosure of information received in confidence. Maintain the authority and impartiality of judges. But listen to this. Any authority may be allowed to restrict your freedom of expression if, for example, you express views that encourage racial or religious hatred. However, the relevant public authority must show that the restriction is proportionate. In other words, that it is appropriate and no more than necessary to address the issue concerned. Well, we have got aspects of this bill that suggest to us that if we hurt a person's feelings, that we can run the risk of being imprisoned for 7 years, or for that matter, being fined $70,000. That is not proportionate. And we will be addressing some of those specific areas during the show tonight. In addition to that article that I just read to you that came out of equalityhumanrights.com, I want to read to you an extract from amnesty.org.uk. And it speaks concerning the aspects of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, because the Charter of Human Rights speaks to the right for everyone to have the freedom of expression, the right to include the freedom to hold their opinions, receive and impart information, ideas without the interference by public authority and regardless of frontiers. Are freedom of speech and freedom of expression the same thing? Now, freedom of speech is legally one part of the wider concept of freedom of expression. So to suggest that the two are not related directly and proportionately and do not fundamentally mean the same thing, how else I shouldn't say how else, freedom of speech is a part of the whole aspect of the freedom of expression. I can stand up, take for example, we had a case very recently where there was a woman who was silently praying in the United Kingdom in front of an abortion clinic. She was not interfering with anybody. She was not talking to anybody. She was simply standing on the sidewalk across the street from the abortion clinic, and she was silently praying. And she was arrested for silently praying. Okay, now that is a deep concern, and I haven't followed up to see the result of that case, where that case is concerned. But these are some of the things that we are looking at in terms of this cybercrime bill. I also have concerns that in his presentation in the Senate, that one of our former attorney generals and chief justices call the names of people in the Senate. Now, my understanding, I'm not an expert at the rules and regulations of the Senate, but it is a committee that is a combination of the members of parliament, who I understand should not even be included, but that's another subject for another time, I guess, should not be included in the Senate. And my understanding, from what I've been told, what has been reported to me, is that names should not be called. Yet we had the former Attorney General and Chief Justice freely calling names, speaking for over 3 hours in his presentation. I'm going to have 10 minutes if they accept my action to this matter. And in doing so, I want to address the hypocrisy of our entire system, where we are, again, my understanding, I was listening to the show the other night when Kemar Stewart shared about the fact that he was invited to make a presentation before the committee, and that the chairman of that committee then requested of him to submit his oral presentation in writing. Now, I don't know, but last I checked in the concise dictionary, oral meant speech and written meant writing. Oral did not mean to write. So obviously, if it's an oral presentation, it can't be written. Now, I am aware of the fact because I have done presentations. I did a presentation to the Committee on Law and Order some years ago. And when I completed that presentation, they asked me to submit the presentation that I made, if I could submit a copy of it to them, and I did. But I was not required to submit my oral presentation before. Now, that is a classic example of the abuse that we can expect when it comes to this cybercrime bill, because now you have a person who thinks that they have the authority as the chairman of this committee to implement processes that, in a sense, have nothing to do with the terms and conditions that were clearly outlined when this matter was advertised. And we have to stay on top of these things because it is clear to me that there are two, I call it the law of the Medes and the laws of the Persians, where there's one law for one group and another law for another. And it would appear to me that this cybercrime bill has not been seriously vetted before it has even been drafted properly. Because anybody who would put into a bill of this nature the areas that we are contesting, areas I believe through section 19 through 23 or something along that line, we'll get to that tonight, should realize that in a reality, it will restrict, it will criminalize politicians, presenters on brass tacks, commentators of any kind, anybody in social media. And on top of it, not only locally, but wherever you are in the world as a Barbadian. And incidentally, as we are speaking, there is discussion ongoing with our government in CARICOM regarding what is being referred to as the CARICOM warrant law, a law which has now been drafted by Barbados's Chief Parliamentary Council's office to enact provisions to bring the CARICOM arrest warrant treaty into force. And that bill has been circulated to all CARICOM member states for their consideration. This was revealed to the Sunday Sun by the Attorney General, Dale Marshall. While the treaty was in force, no law was ever enacted except by St. Lucia to deal with the procedural matters that would be required for the treaty to work across CARICOM member states. So you can see that even in this context, the cybercrime bill would expose Barbadians to warrants, arrest warrants being issued to them by St. Lucia or St. Vincent if something is said that offends someone in those countries. And as a matter of fact, what I find, a couple of things I find interesting, and we have to pay attention to it. I observe that a lot of this has begun to come about since our intimately increasing intimacy with the Chinese Communist Party, not with the Chinese government regarding financial assistance or anything of that nature, which carries with it conditions, terms and conditions. But we had high-level officials of the CCP meet with officials of the Barbados Labour Party, not with the government of Barbados, with the Barbados Labour Party. That is deeply concerning and should be deeply concerning to every Barbadian, because we would want to know what was discussed in that meeting. Were you discussing how to go about silencing the voice of opposition in the country, or for that matter, in the region? Are you discussing how you're going to limit the conversations that people will be able to have, as is the case in China? Anybody in China who opens their mouth against the Chinese Communist Party disappears or is fined. And I observed some cameras in Barbados that are not cameras simply to keep track of traffic. There are cameras that will capture facial recognition. We know this. I mean, come on, folks, wake up. If you're not aware of it, excuse me, if you're not aware of it, get familiar with what's happening in this country. I have already said that, and I have listened to articles. Newsweek recently published an article concerning, allegedly concerning property in Antigua that has been taken over by the Chinese and is now called a something tongue, Chinese tongue or something like that. And I have to go back and look at listen to the article, listen to the video, and read the article very carefully. But having seen that article from Newsweek, this is not now from some conspiracy, what we would call a conspiracy source. This is Newsweek, one of the most respected publications in the world. Now I have to ask myself the question, what's going on with the Chinese loan for the Scotland district? Are we going to hear somewhere in the future that the Scotland district area no longer belongs to Barbadians, where Joes River is a part of the issue that we're having? We need to know what are the terms, and I have said this over and over, what are the terms and conditions of our grants and our loans? And the government is not telling the people of Barbados about this. I am not interested in how much money you're borrowing. I want to know the terms and conditions. When I go in for a mortgage, for that matter, when I go into flow for a phone, or you go into the insurance company to buy insurance, one of the things that many of us do not do is read the fine print. The terms and conditions of having a debit card, a credit card, getting a mortgage, they're terms and conditions you agree to when you sign the bottom line. You can't come back and say, I didn't know, because the terms and conditions are there. What are the terms and conditions of the loans that we're receiving from China? We are hearing about all this money that's being borrowed. I am not interested in the amount of money. I am interested in knowing the terms and conditions. What are the terms and conditions of the loan relative to the refurbishing and development of Kensington Oval and anything to do with World Cup 2024? What are the terms and conditions? What has Barbados signed on to? When the Prime Minister and all of the members of Parliament are dead and gone, our children and our grandchildren are going to be left saddled with these loans and with the terms and conditions surrounding them. So we have to ask concerning that. You must forgive me. But I am not as interested in whether it's 500 million, 400 million, 200 million, 145 million, 1.5 billion. I am interested, even if it is a grant. What are the terms and conditions? And China is busy in the Caribbean, and it should bother Caribbean people. When a government as autocratic and communistic and a violator of human rights as China, as the Chinese Communist Party is, makes its presence as dominant as it is in our region, every Caribbean citizen should be concerned. When our governments are sitting, when our political parties are sitting having private consultation with high-level officials from the Chinese Communist Party, all of our citizens should be concerned. And this is not to do with any matter to do with conspiracy and all that, and propaganda. This is a fact. We know that the Muslims and Christians have been persecuted beyond measure in China. Black people have been persecuted beyond measure in China. These are facts. And now America is expressing concern with the presence of China at their doorsteps through the Caribbean. Now, I also want to say this. A part of this cybercrime bill that concerns me has to do with the matter of what is considered information, misinformation, and false information. And I'm going to say this categorically. We have now proven correct that the only entities that have been giving its citizens false information and misinformation have been the governments of this world, and this government is complicit in it. This government is complicit in it. We were locked down. We were refused the access to any other treatments other than a jab. And there were a number of other criteria which has now been proven to the point where the Supreme Court in Canada has ruled that the government overstepped its authority in its lockdown in Canada. These are facts now coming out, showing to us that the jab has been contributory to the deaths of thousands of people across the world and to the health deterioration of millions of people across the planet. We were seeing it from before. There were those who were speaking up. Frontline doctors were speaking up and being censored, removed from YouTube, Facebook, you call it. Frontline doctors were being removed. Even some of the experts that were consultants with the World Health Organization, even some persons who received Nobel Prizes were removed from the platforms, who were trying to tell the world that this thing was wrong. And I remember distinctly our Prime Minister sitting in a interview with Amanpour, speaking to the matter of controlling the information that was being released at that time as misinformation and false information. And we now know that all that was being said concerning the matter was a fact and was true. We now know it to be so. You can't hide it. And that's one of the reasons this cybercrime bill is so important for the government to pass through, so that it can stifle the access to information other than what government decides you should be seeing. And that's the case in China. That's the case. It was the case in Senegal. In Senegal, we had the opposition leader. I believe it is in Senegal. I stand to be corrected, but I'm sure someone will correct me at some point in time if I'm wrong. The opposition leader in Senegal was in prison for speaking out against the president of Senegal. Well, he's now being removed and he's now gone. No, you're absolutely right, Sandra. The so-called conspiracies have not been proven to be wrong yet. I can give you a very brief, a very quick thing. We're hearing all this stuff about climate change. I must tell you the truth, I have not bought into this matter of climate change 100%. Not when I know that the United States government is deliberately interfering with climatic conditions in the United States and God knows where else. And why can I say that? Well, the Saudi Arabian government out in Abu Dhabi have admitted to seeding clouds, which resulted in a phenomenal deluge of flooding just, I think about a week ago, I think it's in Abu Dhabi, and I stand to be corrected because so many things are happening, so many places. It's funny. The government, the minister responsible is on record talking about climate interference. On record. Years ago, we were hearing about seeding of clouds, seeding of hurricanes. We know about all this silver nitrate that was aircrafts were sent into the eye of hurricanes, are releasing silver nitrate into the eye of the hurricanes and all of that. So I have not bought into this whole matter of climate change just yet. I haven't. Because I know man is experimenting and playing the fool and trying to interfere with weather. I remember watching, and I'm going to find it. I remember watching a video of a lady who's involved in the United States government in this area. And she spoke about the fact that she went outside of her office to catch a smoke. And when she looked up in the air, she saw all of these aircraft trails crisscrossing the sky, and she thought to herself, well, this is very peculiar, because the area where she was, no commercial flights are allowed over that area, and only military aircraft, as far as I recall. And what was important for her that she observed is that these jet trails were not dissipating as traditional jet trails normally do. Chemtrails, thank you, Marcia, normally do. But they were staying, and what was happening was cloud formation was resulting. So I have not totally bought into this matter of climate change in the natural. I am satisfied that people are interfering with our climatic conditions. I'm convinced of that. All right. So there are things that we need to question, and this cybercrime bill is one of them that we need to question, and question vehemently. Up on the screen, you can see that this coming Saturday, we are going to be having another march for the freedom of expression of speech. I like that, freedom of expression of speech, because we got a parliamentarian that wants to suggest to us that freedom of speech is different to freedom of expression. I mean, how ludicrous, how ignorant can you be to even suggest the two are separate? If I'm standing in front of you, imagine me standing in front of my wife and trying to tell her I love her and I can't say nothing. You know, that is ludicrous. It's ridiculous to even give consideration to the ignorance of that suggestion. I have to be able to express myself, and I express myself in words. I express myself in emotions. That is a fundamental human right, and it's protected under the Articles of Freedom of Expression, Article 10 in the Human Rights Charter. And you will recall, some of you asked me for the clip. I think I had posted something to do with it, but there was a clip I ran the last time I was on with you, with a lady speaking from the European Union, and she was speaking to the matter of suspending the Charter of Human Rights, especially when it comes to the World Health Organization, which they're going to be engaging next month. Governments of 190-something countries are going to be engaging next month, which will give the World Health Organization control of your sovereign country in the next pandemic. And they are already planning treatments, treatments for the planned pandemic that they're preparing. There was a bill engaged in the United States, can't remember, I think it was in Milwaukee, in which they were talking about treatments being put in tomatoes. And one of the objectors to the bill was making the point that it is something that the general public should know, because you won't know how many tomatoes you use in order to have protection from a particular treatment. And how would the people know unless they are informed about, they're putting this thing in our food? This is not conspiracy. This is a fact. It's not conspiracy when we talk about these treatments being put in mosquitoes and released. It is a fact. Research it. It's not conspiracy. It's being done. And this is one of the reasons for this cybercrime bill, to restrict the access to information. It's not just to protect children, pedophiles, and all the rest of it, pornographic information. I mean, it's obvious that we're not going to disagree with those things. That's glaringly obvious. But when you start to tread into the realm, as the current Prime Minister expressed to the front Stewart administration back in 2018, carried in the Nation on February the 5th, she accused the government of arbitrarily taking away the rights of people. The amendment also speaking to commanding the end of social gatherings. Well, social gatherings now occur online, virtual social gatherings. Searching the premises of residents without the requirement of a search warrant. This is currently operational, I understand, in the United States. President Biden recently signed into law a bill that extended key U.S. surveillance programs after divisions almost forces collapsed, because there were those who could see its abuse, where American citizens were having their privacy violated by the United States authorities. And incidentally, the World Economic Forum, you will remember I treated to the World Economic Forum concerning the Trident ID card, where the World Economic Forum cautioned that governments could abuse the digital ID. They have also cautioned that governments can abuse cyber security, especially in protecting with regards to the protection of your accounts and your banking and so forth. So I see my good friend the General is in the back room, just waiting for him to give me a thumbs up that he's ready to come on board. As soon as he gives me that thumbs up, I will bring him in, add him to this grouping. Good night, Caswell. I am so happy to be on the show with you tonight. I was on with you last night, but not visible. I was invisible.
No, I saw your comments, so I know you were there.
But it was an exciting and interesting and informative show last night. And I made a lot of notes. I made notes, and as a matter of fact, I have a number of the extracts that you all used with regards to this cybercrime bill. I don't know if you have been listening to my comments as I began tonight. If you were able to,
I just got the link a few minutes ago.
Oh my goodness! I'm so sorry. I hope the others have got it okay, and I'll just mention to Dave to make sure they have, because I don't want any of them not being able to get in and join us. But good night, General Caswell. Why don't you greet the folk and let's have a conversation about this critically important legislation.
All right. Good night, everyone. And thanks, Freddie, for having me again tonight. I think if you all listen to Rose, we could shut shop, because Rose nailed it last night.
Yes.
Rose set up the hypocrisy.
Yes.
And the sleight of hands, the trick, they try to deceive us. Rose went in and she said that she wasn't prepared. Lord help them if she was prepared, because I had to sit down and listen, because Rose was teaching me things that I didn't know anything about.
Yes, she was excellent.
Yes, she was. I have
excellent.
I have nothing but praise for her performance last night, even though Rose think it was not her best. Well, if it wasn't her best, it was damn well. It was damn good. You know. And
I tell you.
Because I had no idea. I had no knowledge that this thing was being conspired against us. Now you are dealing with laws for Barbados to govern Barbadians, and you aren't telling them nothing. You have a select group of people who doing this thing, and then ask the average, and that is what is required by the rules of the House. When you put these things in place, decency And common practice would require you to circulate something like this. Glenn would more be informed about the white paper and the green paper. I don't remember which is white and which is green, to tell you the truth. But that is when they circulate them for comment and they firm them up. Then you have a draft bill. Then when it goes to the House and is laid, when you hear people say, we beg to move that this bill will be read the first time.
Yes.
All that means is that they want to send it to the printry for printing and circulation. And which time it will be put in the official gazette and circulated so people can see it and comment on it. That is what the process is all about. This government has omitted that process for 90+ percent of the bills that they have done. They have ignored the rules, set them aside, because they think that they can govern us as they like, that we are their children and they can treat us like mindless idiots. And this piece of legislation that they just put forward is exactly that. They went ahead, they went with everybody else. They went outside of Barbados, they went Guyana, they went Jamaica, they went Europe, but they didn't come to Barbados, and they didn't come to Barbadians to tell us, because they know that it's not the done thing. They know that Barbadians will stand up against it, because it's taking away all your freedoms. I don't mind what Sir David in his 3-hour session talk about, which is another abuse, because everybody should have gotten 10 minutes. Yeah, 3 hours out of his 10 minutes. And to go there and to talk down and be arrogant to people in this country, I thought it was, I thought that it was unbecoming, especially when they were not being forthright with the public. You know, his few comments that he made, I saw a few of them. I turned off, to tell the truth. And the examples that he cited didn't bear much relevance to what we were talking about. You know, and in my case, when he said I wasn't telling the truth, I don't understand how I could not be telling the truth when I was reading from a bill in Parliament. So if I was not telling the truth, the bill was not telling the truth, because I did not go there and read it and then come to my own conclusions and give an analysis. And no, I read what it said, and I read it to the people. And they said, look there, this is what it's saying. I'm not, and he said, I'm not telling the truth. So that, to sink to that level, you know, I believe that it is unbecoming, because, you know, they want you to believe now that your eyes are not telling you the truth. You know, you can read it for yourself, and they say, don't mind what your eyes are telling you, damn true. You know, that is basically what they're saying to us. You know, and so it makes me unhappy. I want to put it no higher than that. Unhappy with this government, because this government tends to think that Barbados is theirs. They can abuse us, they can treat us their like, and then carry the mindless clowns down the East Coast and give them some food, and all's well in the world. You know, that too is an insult to the people of this country, because ever so often, I remember prior to the 2018 campaign, I used to go to the geriatric hospital to look for an old man on a Saturday. So on my way back, I would come up Station Hill, come through by the police station, cross by Howard Supermarket, cross by Shaw Yard Gap. And every Saturday for months prior to that election, there was pudding sauce out there. I have not seen any pudding sauce out there one time after the general election. It tells you something. It tells you how they believe, and how believe that we are, and how they can treat us to give us some food, and we will be bought off. You know, people say it's corned beef and biscuits. No, it's not. It's gone beyond corned beef and biscuits. No, it's pudding and sauce, and macaroni pie, you know, and all those things are bad for you anyhow. Mind you, I still like a little pudding and sauce, even though I know it isn't the best thing for me to eat at my age. But you know, there are certain things that you have to take the risk at. But when you use it as a political tool, it's insulting. It's insulting in 2024. It was insulting long before then. But it was a boy, it was insulting. But it says that after all the free education that we have gotten, that the politicians still believe that the free education does not develop us beyond how we were in the 50s, early 50s, 60s. And so I believe I came on the political scene in the 70s. I started being involved in politics in 71. You know, I was at school. I was in second or form or something like that. But I started making my understanding and trying to find out what's happening in terms of politics. I was at school. And I have been involved ever since then, one way or the other. I've not been involved in elective politics because I do not believe, and I've told more than one political leader, the way we do business in Barbados, where you have to obey the party's whip. You know, I said, I remember saying to him before when he asked me about running in 1991, I said, sir, look, I'm honored by the confidence that you put in me, right? But I believe that anytime two people sit down and always agree, one is an idiot, at least one. And I cannot be in any group of 18, 17, 18 people and always agree with what they're saying. And that can cause conflict. So leave me where I am. I am happy to be on the outside because I must be able to tell you, I think you are wrong. When I believe that you are wrong. When you are right, I will support you. I will not support wrongdoing. Unfortunately, the way we do business in this parliament, this Barbados parliament, Barbados government, is that we expect blind loyalty. If the leader comes up with something, don't care how stupid, and because it's becoming more stupid and more stupid, or stupider and stupider, as you know, don't worry, you're muted. Yeah, I didn't hear you comment.
Yeah, no, I said we have to get Rose to give us a English course on stupid and stupider.
And
Yeah.
but it's and they just sit down and follow blindly. Even when the Prime Minister was saying to Ralph in her wrap up to the budget speech, she says, and people hear me play on the show at the end of the show at night, and one fella tell me that show real catchy, but what it's all about. They didn't even know, so I can tell them no. Even when the Prime Minister was saying she don't pretend to know about maths or English, she just pretend to care about people because they are supposed to agree with everything she's saying. Watch the video. Santia was there nodding her head, agreeing with the Prime Minister that the Prime Minister only pretend to care about people because they are so programmed to agree with everything she says. They even agree with her. Mind you, I agree with her too. But
But Caswell, there's a little verse. Of course, I'm an ordained minister. All right. So for me to do this show and not bring a little bit of the fundamentals of morals and that kind of thing would be it just won't work with me. But there's a little verse that says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yes.
In other words, what is inside the heart will automatically come to your mouth. You don't even have to try, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. When you open your mouth, it's going to come out. You know what I'm saying? But listen, while you were chatting, I was looking at the bill. All right. And I don't know if you have your bill to hand.
I can find
but
it.
I was looking at section 20. And the heading for section 20 is cyberbullying. All right. A person who intentionally uses a computer system, to publish, broadcast, or transmit data that is offensive, pornographic, indecent, vulgar, profane, obscene, or of a menacing character, or causes any such data to be sent, B, for the purpose of causing annoyance, inconvenience, danger, obstruction, embarrassment, insult, injury, humiliation, intimidation, hatred, anxiety, or causes substantial emotional distress to that person, is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $70,000 or to be imprisoned for a term of 7 years or both. Now, Caswell, I am a evangelical minister. I preach the gospel. I preach from the Bible. And the Bible has explicit references to homosexuality, lesbianism, fornication, you name it. And I am on my church platform channel. All right,
don't stream it.
And I am deliberately preaching. Excuse me, I am deliberately preaching what my faith believes, very much like what Marcia did with her Praise Academy dancers for the National Cultural Foundation presentation that was disqualified. All right. And obviously, I am aware of the fact that it is going to intimidate some people. I am aware of the fact that it is going to affect some people emotionally and so forth. And so what they're telling me now is that I cannot get on my program. I am not calling out anybody. I'm simply preaching what is in the book. And the Apostle Paul incidentally makes his statement, such were some of us, but we have been washed, we have been sanctified, we have been justified. So now here I am preaching this thing, and somebody takes an offense. And you are telling me now that they can take me to court because what's happening now is that you're now engaging the matter of freedom of religious expression and freedom of religion.
What it is a bit more than that, you know, Freddie.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is a bit more than that. There's so many things wrong with this bill, Freddie.
Yes.
Because every day you can find something wrong with this bill. You can say that from your pulpit.
Yes, problem. I can. No problem. No problem. But even if there are people sitting in my congregation who fit the bill.
Yes.
Okay,
good. Say that,
all right.
And you can suffer no punishment, no penalty, not anything. If you just say, don't stream it. Because if you stream it, so how stupid is that? If you say from the pulpit, if you say from a platform on the back of a truck, whatever you do, don't stream it. Because if it goes out on the computer system, then you have committed a criminal offense.
That's the whole thing about it. It now criminalizes me. It criminalizes me.
Right. You have committed a criminal offense. So the person who is offended can now go to the police station and lay a complaint for you. Now, let's say that some of what you said would have been defamatory. If it went out on normally is defamatory. That person has a cause of action against you in the civil court, where they can put you before the court, and the judge, if he thinks that it was defamatory, he can award you some sort of money. Because, you know, all the people always talking about defamation.
Yes, you get fined.
But in addition to that, the police can still come after being awarded compensation for defamation. You have still committed a criminal offense. So the police can come for you now. This had no right being a criminal offense.
That's right.
Before, we had criminal libel years ago. We got rid of it. And now we have sneaked it back into being but this is basically a criminal libel on computer bill. Because right now, the state, because if I defame you, you put me in court, you get $100,000. I don't know you get it from every talk with me, but you get $100,000. That's yours. You happy because they make me pay anything. But if I said that same thing that happened to go out on a computer, in addition to me being punished in the court for my mouth. I still know the police still got me. But worse yet, they have put the offense in the magistrate's court. This is a magistrate's court matter, you know. But given the magistrate in some cases more jurisdiction than the judge. Yeah. More jurisdiction than the judge and jury. One magistrate will now be able to fine you $70,000 or lock you up for 7 years. I think the most a magistrate could have done before this bill was about 3 years. If you got sentences that run on concurrent or consecutive, 3 years. And now you are giving this magistrate, something has to be wrong with that. When you are giving a magistrate more jurisdiction than the judge, you are no longer having a separation between the two. There is a magistrate and a judge know for this purpose of this act. Well, not the purpose of this act, because this act doesn't deal with the judge at all. But so how can you? And they're not thinking. If it were another matter, once you can get 5 years and 2 and 3 years and all kind of stuff, it all go before a magistrate, it go before a judge. The most the magistrate can do is the preliminary hearing. But now, in this bill, the magistrate can lock you up for 7 years. A magistrate.
But
no, I was saying, unless these people who drafted didn't understand that they were breaching fundamental principles of the way we operate. I was speaking to a lawyer some time back, and he was telling me about the gun court in Jamaica, where the Privy Council struck down the gun court because it was giving the people at that level, the lower judiciary, more power or the same power as the judge. He said there has to be a separation of powers. This bill isn't doing that. So it is unconstitutional as a result of all of that. They are saying that is not because it is reasonably required. That is not found in our Constitution. That is found in some interpretation. When it, and the judges interpret that into the law. Again, we are trying to make we have put legislation in place that is not specific, and we are asking the judges to go and interpret it for us. No, if you notice something is wrong with it, fix it before you put it up there before a judge got to be bursting here trying to find out if you do something wrong. And I made the point last night, I can make it again. You put legislation in place so that people will know how far they can go. But when you leave it to the judge, you can find out it is an offense when they come for you. And the judge, and then to the extent of how serious it is, because they have not been specific in this case.
Well, that's, Caswell, that's why I referenced tonight article from amnesty.org.uk. And this is what it said. Does freedom of speech have limits? And in explaining that it has limits, it said this: people imposing the restrictions, whether they are governments, employers, or anyone else, must be able to demonstrate the need for them, and they must be proportionate. All of this has to be backed up by safeguards to stop the abuse of these restrictions and incorporate proper appeals process. Restrictions that do not comply with all conditions violate freedom of expression. This is taken from amnesty.org. Of course, Amnesty International is one of the watchdogs of human rights across the world. My concern is that when we voted, or when we vote, and you can correct me if I am wrong, Caswell, because while I have been around politics for a long time, I haven't necessarily been embroiled in the details such as yourself in terms of being in Senate and knowing all of these different regulations, stipulations, and so on. I learn a lot from all persons around me, including yourself, Kimar, Maxine, and so on. But when we have an election, do we not elect persons to Parliament to represent citizens of Barbados?
Yes, we do. We do not elect people to represent the Barbados Labour Party. We do not
or the Democratic Labour
the
Party, or
Democratic Labour
any of
Party.
them.
We represent people that we elect people to represent the
The
constituents.
citizens of
And you will
Barbados.
hear them say when they have these little grandstanding things, I speak on behalf of the people of my constituency. Speak now.
No, having expressed that, Caswell, because I understand that the government is touting that the international community, I think something to do with this matter of I'm just trying to pull it up here to make sure I don't quote incorrectly. This matter to do with the treaty, some treaty out of Budapest, the Budapest Convention, to which apparently we are signatories. And my question is, where does the obligation of the government lie? Does it lie in the international community under the conventions that we sign, or does it lie with the people of Barbados? Where does your obligation lie? If there's a convention that is going to impose a negative aspect upon the life of Barbadians, as our heritage has been, because remember, we are firm craftsmen. What it says? Strict guardians of our heritage, firm craftsmen of our faith. Right? Where's the obligation of the government? To the people of Barbados or to the international conventions that we sign on to?
It has become more and more to the international conventions without regard to the fact that not one of those people in the international community will ever vote for you. We are the masters.
But that is what they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that we are the employers and they're the employees.
Say that at election time. But that is true all the time.
Yes, that's correct.
They are answerable to us.
Yes.
But we have allowed politicians to breach the rules, do what they like and get away with it. And we just think that we don't elect a king, any feudal king that can say off with your head.
Let me just clarify something here, Pedro. I don't trust Amnesty International. I am reading from Amnesty International out of the Charter of the United Nations Human Rights. So it's not a matter of Amnesty International. I just happen to be reading out of their publication where the UK is concerned, but they are quoting the Charter of Human Rights. So it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Amnesty or the Barbados government or who. It is the Charter of Human Rights. And if I go directly to the Charter says exactly the same thing. So it doesn't matter the source with regards to the particular specific that I'm addressing. Yeah, go ahead, Caswell. Sorry, I just wanted to address that aspect because it's not a matter of me trusting any international agency. It is a matter of right now, Caswell, when we line this cybercrime bill up alongside the UN Charter of Human Rights, what are we being deprived of? That is my question, because my understanding is that almost, and you can correct me, Caswell, do not all of our constitutions across the world have to take into consideration and come into compliance with the Charter of Human Rights?
Well, not all, because we got places, people like
well, China, yes,
Korea, that they do what they like.
Yeah.
But we sign on to those things.
Yes.
But you don't have to. What you need to do is do the right thing. All of
Correct.
These, look, what has happened in Barbados? Politicians like trips. They like to go away. They go and sign a lot of things that they don't even understand that they're signing, because they went away once and signed away our death penalty and didn't even know that they had. They found out when Pilgrim was representing one of his clients, and he put it to the court that no, Barbados has signed on to this convention, so we can't just do this. They didn't know what they signed. It was like they'll go sign these things and then forget that they have signed them because they had a trip, they had a nice per diem, and that was all it's all about. Right now, we do not have a lot of people in Barbados in the House or the Senate that can leave this country and represent Barbados adequately. The problem being that you went and get a lot of people, not because they have any ability, but because they had political loyalty to an individual, not even to the particular party, to an individual. You get them, and then they're useless. And we got a whole bunch of useless people who know cannot represent themselves, so they have to comply. Because if I don't comply, the prime minister can take me out and say you're no longer a minister. She can't fire you from the house. She can say you're no longer a minister. But the minister making $8,000 more than developer in backbench. So what you're going to do? You're going to sit down and hush your mouth. Because look, another thing of this bill that people don't understand. Section 19.3 or clause 19.3 says that even if it is truth, they got ill. But then subsection 5 comes on and says that the defenses of truth and comment, triviality, and privilege shall under the Defamation Act shall extend the prosecution under subsection 3. So they're saying in the subsection that if you tell the truth, you can be prosecuted. But no, they're saying here that the defenses. So they're saying one thing and saying something opposite 2 paragraphs down. The bill is poorly drafted. It does not reflect current thinking. All it reflects is that the government wants to silence the people in this country. And I am not making that up. The prime minister sat in an audience where the young almost senator fellow, he was almost a senator, but he was too young. He stood up in front of the prime minister and Abrams and saying that this act is to protect the ministers from you're muted for it. It's supposed to protect them. That's what it's all about. So that you can't speak up and say what they're doing is nonsense. They want to be able to shut you up. You're supposed to walk about this like a mindless drone. Being in South Korea yet?
But you see this. But you see, this is. I mean, I don't know. I have in my mind. I don't know if it's my analytical mind and how I pull things together, because my fundamental field is marketing. So I find that I pull a lot of things together in my mind. And when I see legislation like this coming forth, when I hear the reports coming out of Africa and other parts of the world, when I hear the reports coming out of Jamaica, when I hear the reports coming out of Antigua, when I see the Chinese Communist Party officials meeting with the Barbados Labour Party officials here in Barbados, I'm beginning to see a pattern developing that is reflective of the Chinese methodology of governance, which restricts freedom of speech, freedom of expression. To some degree, it can even go as far as freedom of association, because if they find you associated with certain people, you'll hear a knock at your door and they'll come in and take you and gone along with you. So these are concerning factors and ought to be concerning factors as we see the increasing involvement of China in Barbados and in the Caribbean through finances. It's called neocolonialism.
No,
that's what it's called.
It's called prostitution.
Oh dear Lord!
No, it's called prostitution. But no, when you do for money.
Jesus. No, I'm just thinking how incredible it is.
That's what it's all about. You prostitute yourself to get money.
I mean, look at the image that we're looking at here. This is a meeting not with the government. There's a meeting with the Labour Party.
Mm-hmm.
And any time I see communist CCP officials meeting with anybody, the hairs on my back go up. Now, I am a believer that God has all things under control. So don't think I'm frightened, because I am not going to let anybody silence my mouth. If I have to go to jail for speaking the truth, I'm sure I will have company from you and others like us who are not going to be muzzled for speaking the truth. But there ought to be a concern in every Barbadian's mind. And I'm going to tell you this, Caswell. A lot of them people, I personally feel that a lot of those people that were down East Coast when? Today? Is it today that we're down the East Coast Road?
Yes, today.
A lot of those people down the East Coast Road are not in agreement with a lot of this stuff going on. Don't mind they're there. They're gone down for the enjoyment and some of their friends and so on. But there are people in their midst
No, they're
who are
gone for the
not in
food.
support.
Buddy,
Gone for
they're
the
being too
food.
nice. They're gone for the
Gone
food.
for the food. No
And
problem. Eat.
that is what they advertise the meeting as. No,
Yes.
no, come down and you don't bring any food. People supply the food. It sounds so cheap. And the meaning when the government of a country or a ruling party of a country can try to entice people with food, it says something about the people offering it and the people who are going to get it.
That is why I said some time ago, if you want an honest government, the people of the country have to start to be honest. We have to start looking at things honestly, Caswell. We cannot engage this cyber. Look, I am not looking at this cybercrime bill from the Democratic Labour Party's position or the Barbados Labour Party's position or any party. I'm looking at this because it means that my children and my grandchildren now, and you mentioned something I want to come back to. Last night you almost mentioned something, sure, I want to come back to. But my children and my grandchildren run the risk of being in prison, Caswell.
Yeah.
My children that are in school, because you know how free they are with their mouths and whatnot, they're talking with their friends and whatnot, and think what it sounds to me as well is an invasion of privacy, because I remember you speaking last night concerning the police having the right to come and infiltrate your home, come into your home, take up all of your devices, carrying all of your personal information, banking information, business information, etc., and having themselves having access to it, denying you access to your own banking information and so on, because a lot of us are now online in banking. If you come and pick up my phone or computer now, I don't know if I can be able to go into a bank now, because if you go into the bank to do business over the counter, you're now getting charged for doing that. And for what I heard you say last night, and I saw something to do with this bill that Biden passed in the United States, where not in the United States, really Prime Minister back in 2081, when she was leading the opposition, spoke about residence of persons being searched and encroached upon without the requirement of a search warrant. And I'm asking the question because you spoke to the matter of a magistrate. I think at one point in time they said something about an officer just giving the idea that there was a crime about to be committed. How did I know that?
You're on your computer.
They're mind readers. They're fortune tellers. You mean?
You're on your computer in your house, in the privacy of your house, and they can come and knock on the door with a warrant that says that you are about to commit a crime.
Well, how are you going to know that?
I asked David Simmons, asked Mia Motley, asked Marsha Cattle, asked those people who pushed this bill and say it was fair, because Section 23 or Clause 23, because when it is a bill, you call it a clause. When it is an act, when it's passed in Parliament and signed off by the President or the Governor General, it becomes an act. And when there's an act, you say sections of the act, but the same thing now changed from clause to section. So right now it's still a bill before the Senate, and in the Senate, unless something is awfully wrong with my eyes, it says where a judge or magistrate is satisfied on information on oath given by a police officer that there's reasonable ground for suspecting that an offense has been, is being, or is about to be committed in any place, and that there is evidence that such an offense has been, is being, or is about to be committed in that place, the magistrate may issue a warrant authorizing any police officer to enter and search that place, including any computer system, using such reasonable force as is necessary. Even this section is bad because it says here we're a judge or a magistrate, but then they come back and say the magistrate can issue a warrant. It doesn't say the judge too. But then they will say, oh, that's just a mistake. And that's what the Law Revision Commission should be doing. Fixing things like that. Not making, not go, that's what helping people draft laws and that kind of thing, you know. That's not his job. But I do not understand why they have reached into the Law Revision Commission to make them the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, because that's who draft the laws for Barbados. As a matter of fact, we have a situation now where they bypass the civil service to draft laws, they bypass the civil service to defend government, because we have a Department of Lawyers in Barbados, headed by the Solicitor General, that defends the government in case the government is sued. But almost every time the government is sued in any high-profile case, you have a situation where the government goes out there and pick up friends to defend the government. And we are paying a person or persons, because we play at the entire government department, to represent the government, but the government push them aside, have them up there doing precious little and paying them. And then paying some really big bucks to make their friends rich, their lawyer friends rich, at the expense, well, not at the expense, because the people ain't getting the experience when the government refuses to use them to do their job. They're not being paid, they're being paid, but and somebody else is doing their job. Government is doing that. And then they have also done it in terms of drafting legislation, because there is a what they call a parliamentary council, chief parliamentary council, and her department, her section, she has drafters. But they used to call them crown councils, and now state council, or whatever they call them these days, and they draft the laws. As a matter of fact, every lawyer don't just get and draft laws. It is a discipline. And now we're seeing people going into retirement places and bring up retired people to draft the laws and have our people there sitting down.
Caswell, let me interject here just for a moment to welcome. I see her in the back room. I'm just she's now in the front house. She come out to the back room, straight to the front house. Good night, Marcia. So good for you to be joining us tonight. It's a pleasure, as always, to co-host the show with you and with Caswell as one of our panelists. I think we're looking forward to a number of others joining us tonight, because we are dealing with a very serious matter. And it's a pleasure to have you back on board with us tonight. Welcome to your show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ferdinand. In between, my preparing for classes, etc., I was listening in, and I thought it was so awesome what you were doing, and making all of the connections. That was when you were on by yourself. I thought that was so beautifully done. But then I had to run off and do some other things, and I'm glad to be here. We had a great time in Joe's River. I know we're talking about something very serious, but I just want to thank those that came out to Joe's River, because that in itself, is defiance. It's the people saying this is our land, and our foreparents, traversed this place. And we're going to walk on it. And we had a fabulous time. The Hike Master told us that they had 5 times as much persons than they normally have. And, lots of children were there, young people as well. And it was a great time was had by all. We had people there who were like 80 years old walking.
Wow.
Mr. Frank.
Wow!
Wow! I love hiking. I love to watch it.
Yeah.
I love to do it, but I was catching up on some much needed rest, and then my software.
It's a beautiful it was a beautiful act of defiance, really. People came out in the numbers, because they are saying they're making a statement, and we're hoping that, Mr. Franklin, with this cybercrime bill, that we will make a statement on Saturday. Very important. I see Heathcliff wrote something on here. It says, Belgians, do you see the clear and present danger of the cybercrime bill? She's asking a question, or he. Belgians, do you see the clear and present danger of the cybercrime bill? Or you believe, like the others, that we are crying wolf, 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 and there's nothing?
Mhm,
Do you
mhm.
see the clear and present danger of the cybercrime bill? I'm joining Heathcliff in asking it this. And what are you prepared to do about it? There are lots of things happening in the chat, Mr. Franklin, because we could talk all we want, If the people of Barbados are not prepared to do something about it, Dr.
That's right.
Bertrand,
That's right.
then
That's right.
all of our talking is in vain, really,
Yeah, I spoke to a friend of mine today. He sent it to his pastor and asked the pastor to circulate this thing in the among the members of the church. And I'm sad to report that the people are saying, well, they leave it to God. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and that kind of thing, to God the things that are God, forgetting that you have to stand up and fight for yourself. You can't just think that every care that you got, you're going to say, well, God will provide. You got to stand, but I don't know if it's biblical or not. They say God helps them who help themselves, and you got to help yourself, because you just can't sit down and say, well, I ain't got nothing to say about it because I'm a Christian and I don't think, because I don't think it has anything to do with Christianity. I think it's anything to do with fear. You are fearful of the powers that be, so you hide behind God, hope that the excuse is to say, well, God will take care of me. I was a bit, I don't know. I don't even, I was disappointed.
Well, Caswell, without running the risk of touching on a religious matter, the whole aspect of God helping us often results in us acting. We have to do some stuff. I mean, you can go through the Old Testament and you can find God did a lot of stuff, but very often he did it in conjunction with the actions of people. You can go through Jehoshaphat, Joshua, Moses, go through a whole ton of them. But we had to do something. And inevitably, I believe that the church in Barbados is and has not been in touch with the reality of what's happening on the ground with people in this country, particularly pre-pandemic and especially post-pandemic, where it is required for us as spiritual leaders to make people bring their faith to bear on the ground, if you follow what I'm saying. All right. You got to walk it out. I think it was James that said it very eloquently. He says faith without works is dead. And I don't think it could be said better.
You touched something just now
Yeah.
when you said post-pandemic. You remember when we had the lockdowns and we had the restrictions on how many people could be in the church, and they had 10. But in a minibus, they could have carried 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had so many churches that could hold 10 minibuses.
Yeah.
So I believe it might be something like that. They don't want to be shut away from the fellowship that they failed, because sometimes if your cousin going to church and seeing your sisters and brothers and things, and then when you can't go and see them, and you went to computer literate and you can't get on my computer and Zoom them or thing. And the thing is same as when you're going there and congregate with your fellow believers. So I feel that they are frightened to have something like that imposed upon them again. That is why they're shutting up and keeping quiet. Because, Brad, tell me, how big is a minibus? That a minibus can hold 15 people, but the largest church in this country could only have held 10. And that's I think that's what they're afraid of.
See, you have the situation which we are dealing with in Barbados. You're quite correct in terms of the fact that we're dealing with a fear factor, and there's a little verse that says the fear of man sets a snare, it sets a trap, it creates an environment that people find themselves imprisoned by and locked away by, and that's what we're facing with this cybercrime bill. people are afraid. I mean, stop and think about it, Caswell. I cannot, based on this bill, I would not be able to send you some of the messages that I've sent you. You could not send me some of the messages and articles, even though they're coming out of the publications of a newspaper. You wouldn't be able to send me those messages. As a matter of fact, I remember a case, and I think you might recall this. I think it was in Senegal, Marcia, if I stand to be corrected. Wasn't it in Senegal that a woman who bought a tomato sauce?
Nigeria.
Nigeria, thank you. In Nigeria, she bought a tomato sauce, and she published a commentary on the sauce she used. Wasn't she imprisoned?
Yeah.
For that? I mean, this is what we are bordering on, because as I look at the bill, Caswell, Marcia, as I look at it, the things that concern me is the broad interpretation of the violations that are being engaged when the Charter of Human Rights requires specifics. And it says that the Charter of Human Rights treats to the specifics that you have to speak to, not just a generalization. You have to be concise and clear for everyone to understand what you mean where these matters are concerned.
Yeah. You know, the thing about that Nigeria situation in Abuja, Nigeria, is that in Nigeria, they have passed a cyber crime bill.
Yes.
And it is through the cyber crime bill, Dr. Ferdinand, that they were able to arrest this woman on September 24th last year. She was arrested because she gave a bad review of this tomato sauce. And anybody listening to this could have, think that we make it up. I remember the first time I saw it, I thought that it was, I said, I had to go and research it myself to realize it is a true story. It is real. There's a real woman that was arrested by the cybercrime bill of Nigeria.
For tomato sauce?
Tomato sauce. And the thing is that
imagine that.
There have been many reviews. The issue here, Dr. Ferdinand, is that people give reviews all over Nigeria all the time. The fact, though, is that this is it's in their law, you see. And so any businessman, some people might not take might not do anything about it, but then others might. And that's the issue that we have here, is that it is in the law. That she offended this man and offended his business, and therefore he was within the law to get her arrested, and she was arrested. The police came and arrested her. The woman, she's a mother of two, I believe, and she was just totally shocked that this happened to her. And that's the thing that Barbadians need to understand, that once this becomes law, once it's proclaimed and it becomes law, then anybody can use it. Anybody can be offended. Anybody can have an issue, and you get arrested. You think it's just for us? It could be for anybody.
And the thing about it, Marcia, is that when you look at the way the bill is drafted, knowing the legal system in Barbados, because I read that Nation extract by Adrian Green, Sunday, April the 28th, and he made the comment that the chairman of the Law Reform Commission says the courts will decide. Errol Barra said, if you want justice, stay out of the law courts, because I am thinking of, and Caswell, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm thinking of the extensive time it takes for courts to decide on, even to entertain hearing cases, and you having these legal matters hanging over you, and the cost. It's not everybody, and I don't know the extent to which legal aid is able to assist persons. I do not know what the criteria is in order to engage legal aid, if you have to be earning below a certain amount or whatever. But in the event that legal aid cannot assist you, can you imagine what the cost would be to a client for these types of legal matters. My son has had a legal matter pending. I won't call the name of the attorney because he's too well known. Since 2011, Caswell, Marcia, 13 years.
Wow.
For a car accident that the insurance company accepted liability for, and he cannot get a settlement in 13 years. So imagine if somebody, as you have mentioned, not everybody, but somebody offended by me preaching a message. Imagine if they were to do that to me and virtually suspend my ability to preach pending the hearing of a case.
Yeah, and I think that is what I think that is actually, I mean, I love this scenario that you use there as a preacher, because I think that a lot of people, are thinking, well, that's not going to happen to me. I don't, I don't speak out against certain things, and I'm not political. The church world likes to tell me that I'm being political, sitting on here, each night, and I'm speaking up on behalf of everybody. And I'm being told that I'm political in speaking about a bill that could put the very pastors in jail. But I'm being called political, and because somehow we feel that, well, it doesn't, it's not going to affect us. It's not going to affect me. I'm in the church. I'm a pastor, and I'm a holy man of God, and I'm, or woman of God. That's not going to affect. That's for those political people. The point is this: will your sermon offend, or the sermons that you preach, right? Have they ever offended anyone? That's the thing.
Oh, yes.
The Bible says that the gospel itself is an offense. Because when you speak truth, it becomes offensive. So I think churches need to rethink their involvement in this, or it is that our sermons will no longer offend. Is that what we're really saying?
Well, I sincerely hope not, Marcy. And again, I'm not trying to be religious here, because this show is not a religious show either. But we are simply illustrating the fact that everybody, including the churches, should be deeply concerned about this legislation, because it has the capacity to stifle the voices even of motivational individuals who may offend. I can offend, and I don't have to talk about homosexuals and lesbians. I can talk about adultery, and somebody sitting somewhere can take an offense, and their feelings can be hurt, because this is what the legislation says.
Look, we have a comment there on the screen that says, since the enactment of Cybercrimes Act in Nigeria, at least 25 journalists have faced prosecution under the law, including 4 arrested earlier
this year.
Well, Freddie, to answer your question about legal aid, you're going to get legal aid for it. It's not one of the...
Sorry, you said what?
No, you're not going to get legal aid for it. It's not one of the offenses settled in the schedule.
Okay.
The Community Legal Services Act.
Mm-hmm. So that means that you're going to be faced with the expense of paying for your lawyer. Now, how many Barbadians, when you think about it, Marcy and Caswell, how many Barbadians are on some form of social media platform, some form of device, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, or whatever? How many? And who can defend themselves in this matter?
But Freddie, you must also remember, I refuse to participate in somebody set up some programs for me, set up without my knowledge, without my consent. There was a YouTube account, Instagram, Facebook. All of these things were set up in my name without my knowledge. And when people call me and tell me, well, I hear some waiting for you to come up on the show. I said, what show are you talking about? You know, I got a call from a senator say you got a radio show and you didn't even tell me anything. I said, what are you talking about? Because I'm at a loss. Somebody set it up in my name. And it was all over the place. The only good thing about the advertising for the show, they had a very beautiful picture of me. But other than that, you know.
But you see, this is why Caswell.
Part of it.
This is why Caswell. The march on Saturday should attract everybody. It should attract members of the DLP. It should attract members of the BLP. It should attract members of the church. It should attract members of non-governmental organizations. It should attract people in the media. It should attract everybody, because everybody is going to be impacted by this legislation. Everybody. All the commentators on Brass Stacks and all the other radio programs, they're going to be impacted.
Yeah. You know, you talk about, you know, political leaders. And we were just looking at just what happened in Nigeria, what, you know, with the woman with the sauce.
Yes, yes.
And then someone is telling us about these journalists who have been, you know, some of them even arrested in Nigeria since the passing of that cybercrime bill in Nigeria. Let's look at Senegal. June 2023, the Senegalese government implemented curfew-like internet shutdowns, effectively restricting access from 1 p.m. to 2 a.m. nationwide. The measure was allegedly aimed at suppressing dissent surrounding the trial of one of the opposition leaders. And this opposition leader, Ousmane Sonko, actually, he was in prison. And why was he in prison? He was in prison because he said something that offended the then president, and that president was offended, and they have a cybercrime bill. And so this guy was put in jail. And when they wanted to do some kind of protest, etc., he then went ahead and shut down the internet. Yeah, this is Senegal. And you would remember this same Senegal leader was here in Barbados 2 weeks before you know, he was supposed to relinquish power. In the West Bank in Palestine, June 2017, the cybercrime legislation includes ambiguous terms and principles that Palestinian authorities can exploit with ease. Notably, Articles 16, 20, and 51 includes fines or imprisonment under vaguely defined offenses like endangering the security and integrity of the state, instigating racial tensions and undermining national unity. The enforcement of the law in 2017 led to the arrest of numerous journalists and activists, such as Ahmad Awartani, Ibrahim, before subsequent modifications were made. They had to go back. They had to go back to the law right there in Palestine, and they had to make modifications to the law because there were so many arrests of numerous journalists and activists, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Palestinian Indian Independent Commission for Human Rights has said of the cybercrime law in Palestine that it is a big setback to the freedoms in the West Bank. And I'm saying we are speaking out here in Barbados, and we are speaking out to those who are listening to us overseas. You know, we need the human rights, tribunal or lawyers to look into this cybercrime bill that they're seeking to proclaim in Barbados. And just as they did for Palestine, declaring it a big setback to freedoms, it is, and that's what Adrian Green is saying. With all the little bit of accomplishments that we've made, this cybercrime bill is setting us back. Look at what happened in Libya. The Human Rights Watch warned that the 2020 anti-cybercrime law restricts freedom of speech. This is the Human Rights Watch. They're saying in Libya that it restricts freedom of speech. So what about Barbados? February 2023, Libyan authorities detained a female singer and an online content creator, accusing them of breaching the law and of the cybercrime bill, which brings me to the point that we must understand that artists will be affected by this law. Can you imagine the young man who did the little song there about pretending? Huh? What if the prime minister says, I am offended by that? That young man who produced that song in a studio based on this cybercrime bill that we have in Barbados, that music producer could be arrested. I want us to understand the seriousness of what is happening here. In Bahrain, the cybercrime law grants multiple government bodies the authority to block and censor a broad spectrum of websites. There's no requirement for a court order to censor websites hosting content perceived as a challenge to the government. That's Bahrain. If there's any content that perceived as a threat or a challenge to the government, they can shut down that website. This includes any material critical of the Bahrain government, the royal family, or the prevailing status quo, as evidenced by the situation surrounding the Al-Wasat newspaper. These actions are inconsistent with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which explicitly guarantees freedom of thought and opinion. According to this declaration, all individuals possess the right to express their opinions through various mediums, including speech, writing, pictures, or any other form of expression and publication. And this is a human rights crisis we're having in Barbados. Our constitutional rights are being snatched from us. And we have lawyers. There are lawyers, senior lawyers, former attorney generals who are in agreement with this. We are hearing who they've put now as the chair of that committee, Mr. Minister Edmund Hinkson, or Mr. Edmund Hinkson. You heard him in the speech that he gave in Parliament, saying that we don't really have a freedom of speech. We have a freedom of expression in Barbados, and that's coming from a lawyer. And this is the same individual that has been handpicked to chair this committee that will be looking at the cybercrime bill. So these are some of the real things that we are dealing with. And so when they are mentioning international, this is happening, all over the world, and we are just following suit. What they failed to show us was, all the human rights infringements. Right? They failed to show us that. And let's hear this video on the screen here. Yes, go ahead, Dave.
And I want to talk to you all in here today as comrades all. When we see the kinds of attacks that are being mounted against our comrades, because that is what they are, Minister Wilfred Abrams is the Honorable Wilfred Abrams and the member for Christchurch East, but Mr. Wilfred Abrams, I know, will agree that he is our comrade. And when Comrade Wilfred Abrams is assaulted verbally and otherwise on the internet, or when Comrade McConney or any member of this party, it falls to the faithful of the Labour Party to get up and say, no, we will not stand by and let you do that.
So, to be absolutely clear, we have designed legislation to stop Comrades Abrahams, McConney and other BLP members of Parliament from being assaulted.
And frankly, we have to do a better job of that. And I'm going to be very straight on with that. We have to do a better job of that because the others are surprisingly keeping it together at this point to come after us. And so if you If you want the Dems to return to power, then we have to sit down and do nothing. But if, like me, you fear that prospect, and if, like me, you know that that will spell the death knell of Barbados, then we have to do everything that we can within the bounds of the law to protect our ministers, the members of the parliamentary party, and indeed the party.
So there you have it. From the mouth of babes. We are enacting legislation in order to prevent the return to power of the Dems and to protect the party. Wow. Is that what they are teaching in Roebuck Street?
Well, on the basis of the meeting with the CCP, I would have to say yes, that's what they're teaching. Because only in China are you unable to open your mouth and speak. Because if you open your mouth and speak, you will disappear. How many of you remember that? You remember that Chinese lawn tennis player? I don't know her name, but she suggested something against the Chinese Communist Party. We didn't hear from that young girl for months.
Right, that is so true.
For months, she disappeared. And we have a meeting of the top authorities of the CCP with the Barbados Labour Party, not with the government. And I am making this distinction very clear tonight. If we are dealing government to government, I can understand that. But when the Chinese Communist Party sits with a party in our country, a political party in our country, I am deeply concerned. Because what you're doing is you're spreading your propaganda and your operational processes with us, with the party, with that party, as to how to maintain governance, how to shut down opposition. So if this bill passes, the DLP cannot win the next general election, even if it was a foregone conclusion. And if the DLP doesn't get up off their backsides and join us on Saturday, they may find themselves in that position. And as Marcy said, this is really, we are not saying this is about the DLP, the BLP, but what we are saying is that this cybercrime bill, as it is laid out before us, is going to put all of that at risk, because you will not be able to communicate via social media, promote your party's policies, criticisms of the government, nothing of the sort you will be able to do. Now, I don't know how many of you all followed the election in the United States of America with President Obama, but President Obama fundamentally used social media to win the presidency of the United States. He did not go the traditional process alone. He used social media in a big way. He was a master at it, and he won the presidential election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Saturday's march, as you're saying,
It's
Dr.
crucial.
Ferdinand, is very, very, very crucial.
Very crucial.
Very crucial. And I go back to the statement that was made, or the question that was being asked by Heathcliff. Says, Bajans, do you see the clear and present danger of the cybercrime bill? Do you see the clear and present danger of the cybercrime bill? And what are you prepared to do about it? Do you see the clear and present danger of the cybercrime bill? And what are you prepared to do about it? Last night we gave some suggestions to people of what they can do. And that is to take the sections of the bill that are of concern and to share it. Share it with your churches. I don't care what don't assume that your pastor is going to say, we don't want you to share that in our church. Share it with your church, share it with your friends, share it at work, speak about it every time that you get an opportunity. Speak about it, educate people. There are lots of people who they don't understand. When you listen to Edmund Hinkson tonight, he's saying that there's no difference really. The language in the Computer Misuse Act is the same language in the cybercrime bill. I spent a little time, not a lot, this evening going through the Computer Misuse Act, and it's not the same. In fact, that is why they are replacing it with the cybercrime bill. So I'm not sure he's saying it is similar. I don't know what he means by that. I really am not sure exactly what he's speaking of, because
it has some similarities, but it is more draconian. It is more draconian
Yes, yes.
than the Computer Misuse Act. You see, this thing, because the Computer Misuse Act was not enough for them to achieve the end. Mind you, that's why I was telling you all that child pornography and stuff is already in the law. So when they come and put it here, it isn't saying that. So it was dishonest to say, or that we had to put laws in place for child pornography and that kind of stuff because the law was already there. What they have done is to repeal it and replace it, but it was there
and expand it.
right? So they were just basically telling people untruths to get them to sympathize with them, and they get the youngster, the boy, the little child there that was speaking just now, but it is insidious, because I remember, I don't do a lot of reading in this book, but I remember reading once it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So they are creating idiots now, so that when they become old enough, they will be able to go before Parliament and lie to people too when they have to give evidence.
But I must tell you that personally, I'm exceptionally disappointed in the presentation I heard Sir David Simmons give. And I've known Sir David for a long time. I've had tremendous respect for him. As Attorney General, as Chief Justice, I've had exchanges with him. His wife, Mary McCormack, she was at one time the Chief Registrar, I believe, at Registration Office. Then she became a Supreme Court judge, I believe. Is that right, Caswell? Supreme Court judge.
She was a judge. Registrar, she was a magistrate. She was registrar, Supreme Court, and then she was a judge.
And to think, having my own discussions with Sir David and knowing his knowledge and expertise within the context of the law, I hesitate to think that when I look at this bill in its totality, especially the segments that we're looking at, that he had anything to do with it. I am hard pressed to think about it, because I cannot think of anything that removes or threatens the liberties and rights of people more than those areas in of the clauses in the bill that we're referring to. And Marcia, I made the observation earlier that we are not against the bill in its totality. We agree with a number of its components that are glaringly obvious. But when you look at certain aspects of this bill, and you look at the generalization, not the concise understandings of it, and you realize what the capabilities are, you coming into my home, taking my computer, all my devices, all my phones. I can't deal with my bank account. I can't communicate with my business partners overseas. My entire life is under threat. And if people in Barbados think it's just one or two people, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
Sadly mistaken. And I want to say, Marcia, there is a need. I don't care what's going on at George Street. I don't care. Get it together, and get it together in time to join us for the march on Saturday, May the 4th. Is it? Am I correct in that? May 4th.
May the 4th at 10 a.m. Obviously, we're still awaiting permit for that, but the letter is in, and but we are asking people to come down. Everybody needs to be present on Saturday at 10 o'clock. Saturday 10 a.m. As you know, we start right there at Massey Car Park is where we are, where we start, and we go all the way to Independence Square. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Now, I was doing a little research on the Caribbean, and the cybercrime bill in the looking at it in the Caribbean, and Trinidad. I think it's 2017. Since 2017, I believe Trinidad, they've had their cybercrime bill, but I can tell you it is nothing. There are no clauses like what we're seeing from 19 to 23 in the Trinidad cybercrime bill.
No, I've observed the same.
Barbados would be the first Caribbean country that is putting something, that is doing, enacting a bill of this nature that is muzzling its citizens. And I can't help but think of, Adrian Green made mention of the slave code. And the slave code of 1661 really was what was used by the rest of the Caribbean. Barbados was the first country to enact a slave code. And I just wanted to read just a little bit of what the slave code, why they wanted to enact the slave code. And the rest of the world, the US, everybody lined up and they followed what Barbados was doing in this small country. And I think with this particular thing, and some other things as well, when we think of the juke, we were in the Caribbean, we were the most juked in the Caribbean, listen, it says one of the earliest established colonial laws in the Atlantic was for the island of Barbados in 1661, known as an Act for Better Ordering and Governing of Negroes. The Barbados Slave Code established that enslaved Africans be treated as chattel. This is the first place that was enacted, that we be treated as chattel and seen as 3/5 of a human. That is where it happened, right here in Barbados. And you mean to tell me that we're sitting down again and we're watching this thing playing out, where we are the first Caribbean island that is picking up this draconian aspect of the cybercrime bill, and talking about, we want to sign on with what the world is doing. Not all the countries are doing this. In fact, the human rights lawyers and agencies are fighting a lot of these countries that are instituting these laws. So what is it when you almost like when you tell us, oh, this is happening all around the world, is it that we are to say, oh, well, I guess we have nothing to say? We don't live all around the world. We live in Barbados, and we in
That's
Barbados
right.
saying absolutely not.
That's right.
Right?
Marcia, you were saying Barbados, but hasn't Guyana begun to engage some of this as well? Because I remember a Guyanese in the U.S. being very critical of the Guyanese government, and they're seeking to have him extradited from the United States to face charges in Guyana. I can't remember, I stand to be corrected, but I think you might have had him on the show at one point.
Yes, he was actually on the show. But what I'm not able to find in that, and you're correct about that, Dr. Ferdinand. I'm still yet to, and I need some time to research
their bill
equivalent,
yes.
their bill, because I would love to be able to see it. I know that I looked at Trinidad's, and I know Jamaica. There's none in Jamaica. So, and I don't know of any other Caribbean island. I'm yet, if anybody has read Guyana's and can let us know, right? But this Barbados slave code was adapted to Jamaica and other British colonies in the Caribbean, and even to South Carolina colony, as a legal basis for the treatment of enslaved people in many parts of North America. In the 13 colonies, Barbados created that legal basis for the treatment of enslaved people. Yeah, throughout the late 17th century into the 18th century, changes to the slave codes were only enacted to further restrict the few liberties of the slave community and make their lives worse. And so right here in Barbados, that slave code in 1668 became even more draconian. in 1668. And I think, I mean, you know, whenever I read this cybercrime bill and see that the aim is to shut us up and to take our rights, our constitutional rights from us, our human rights from us, I can't help but think about that slave code. And let me tell you, Barbadians, that slave code is still on the books. It's still there. It's still there. It still exists today. Yeah.
Well, I see. I was waiting for because I see Maxine has entered the back office, the back room.
Yeah.
Just waiting for her to give us a thumbs up as to when she's ready to come in. But you know, Marcia, this entire matter is very disturbing. I think would be an appropriate word to use. It's very disturbing, and as I mentioned, you know, long after we are all dead and gone, you're going to have our children and our grandchildren having to face. I mean, even now, if this bill were passed in its current state, Marcia, you know, our children and our grandchildren could be at risk. We could be at risk because,
Freddie,
of course, you know, they can't. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying I ain't worrying about my grandchildren right now. I worry about me because
Yes,
if the bill passed, they're gonna lock up me, you know.
well, they're going to lock up. They would lock you up.
They're gonna lock up you.
But they would lock you up too because they can't lock up our children because I think they would be below age or something like that. So they would come for us.
You see, no, but right now, this bill in futuristic, the one deal with a problem that they perceive that is happening now. It's a problem for everybody else to know that. And what really bothers me is that everything that the Barbados Labour Party did in 2018 to the Democrat Labour Party to get them out of office on the computer, because they had a massive computer disinformation program against the Democrat Labour Party.
Massive.
No, they are saying that what they did to get rid of the Democrat Labour Party, if somebody do it, when this bill is passed, it'll be a crime. You know how really bad that sounds? They achieved government by doing something that they thought was wrong.
I had a crazy thought, Caswell. Would bills like this be retroactive?
No. Legislation speaks from the future. You know,
I know. I was just being facetious.
But the thing is, they have no shame.
Yeah.
You know, if I had done something like that, I would walk at night. I wouldn't really want to see me in the clear light of day.
Well, I see Madam Maxine is getting ready to join us. Maxine, just to give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Yeah, you're okay. Let me bring you in because I still wear my spectacles, and I am feeling a little jealous seeing you. And you don't have to use any. Unmute. You have to unmute. You're not unmuted. Unmute your mic. Unmute. We're not hearing you. You have to unmute. Okay. Good. Start again from the beginning.
Let me say good evening. And let me say that while I can see close up, I still will require spectacles for distance and to drive and so on. So I am not quite there. And next week I'll get the other one sorted out. So
yes. Well, you know, I had mine done not long ago, and they told me that they saw a slight onset of cataract, and they recommended I use these lenses that change with the night, with the brightness.
Not progressive. You call it
transitional lenses, and they also suggested I get some prescription shades because it's the glare. I'm told. I mean, I'm not the expert at it, but they told me it's the glare that creates and causes the cataracts.
That's why there's such high incidence of cataracts and pterygiums in this. Actually, I had two operations because I had a pterygium done in January and then the cataract. So, but luckily I don't have to do the double on this one. Well, good
Well, so
evening. But
good. It's so good to have you and to welcome you. And I find it a distinct pleasure when I have the opportunity. I mean, Caswell always with us, but I find it a distinct pleasure when I have you and Marcia together. And I think Rose is coming in tonight too. So
yeah,
I have three
probably.
girls on my side.
But you,
Good
Caswell,
evening. A pleasure to have you.
notice, you know that Maxine looks even brighter now without her glasses.
I would have to admit that she is there is an aura about her, a sparkling. I don't know.
Yes. I can attest to that. And you
that's
can't
like
lock me up,
it's like
but you can lock me up
that's all.
because it's true.
Dear me.
That's
Welcome,
because I
Maxine.
have had to stay home. I can't go anywhere. I have to. So I'm getting some rest.
That's good. That's good. Welcome to the show.
So thank you very much. I've been listening to all that you were saying earlier, and I started to make some notes because this whole cybercrime bill, and Marcia was asking what was the difference between. I saw a note asking what was the difference between the Computer Misuse Act. I think that would have been back in 2005, and I'm going to go and look at that. But what I'm going to do, thanks, Lucinda. And what I'll go and do is look at the two pieces of legislation, but I would hazard a guess that they're very similar. But I'm gonna put on my used to be foreign affairs hat and look at this evening in a sense, because when I listened to you and Caswell earlier, I started to reflect on this. You know, a number of questions came to me because I think as Marcia was trying to remind, I wouldn't say convince, because if people are not convinced by now, I don't know what to say to them. But as Marcia was trying to remind our audience, this is a very important piece of legislation. And the question is, you know, or there's several questions I would throw up. And one of the first questions that I made a note of is, what problem is the bill seeking to address or solve? And I'm going to raise some questions and then I'll make some comments. A second question, because and in answering that, we also can look at it in relation to any existing legislation. And remember, Caswell has talked about defamation. So if we are talking about trying to regulate, to control, to create some kind of regulatory framework to minimize certain criminal activities as it relates to computer, because when you talk about computers, you're talking about computers and the internet and so on. That's where the whole notion of cybercrime, because we talk about cyberspace. So if you're trying to manage behaviors, and I'm trying to use some layperson language, but I'm not a lawyer. So we're trying to ensure that people behave properly. Let me put it like that. You want to put some legislation in place. But in doing that, the question then is, if that's what you're doing, how do you go about doing it? Do you put in place the kind of draconian measures that we are hearing? Or do we put in place measures which make sense to everybody to protect the innocent and to punish the guilty? But in what we're seeing, perhaps you can argue that they're almost punishing the innocent as well.
Punishing the innocent.
You know, and that is one of the concerns. So then the other question that I wrote down as I listened to you gentlemen was, what is the impact of this legislation on freedom of speech and basic human rights of the citizens of this country? And then another question I asked, this is where my whole perspective of Barbados being one of the community of nations, Barbados being part of an international community, is what has prompted this legislation. And in looking at that, I asked myself, and part of what I was talking about earlier was, what are the national or internal, and I would say even regional, because we are part of CARICOM, okay? What are the national and international considerations? So in essence, what is happening on the ground in Barbados, in CARICOM? Now, when we get to this show, let's look and see what's happening on the ground in a positive way, because I am yet to see anybody demonstrate that this show has been negative. Some people may not like us when we laugh a little bit, but last night, I don't know if Pastor Ferdinand, you heard me try to explain why it is important sometimes for people who sit here night after night dealing with serious matters to at least find a little laughter as a kind of tension reliever, because this is especially when people are threatening your very existence and so on. So if we laugh a little bit, is because that is what I would call a pressure relief valve. But
Laughter,
at the end
I'd
of
say.
the day, laughter is good. Yeah, laughter is good
Well,
medicine. No, not,
sorry, Maxine.
no, go
Somebody
ahead.
had said when I began the show a couple of weeks ago, that I was so serious and I was so on fire and everything. So every now and again, you try to be bring a little
Bring it
humor
down.
in it, to tone things down a little bit.
Precisely, and
Yeah.
especially, I mean, imagine. I don't know how many people understand the seriousness of being threatened. And I remember I had a conversation with Marcia about this because for 10 years I did call-in show. People will call me at home and cuss me, whatever the case may be. But Barbados was a different place in the 90s and early 2000s. Nowadays, you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes. Oh, yes, I do.
And furthermore, the kind of issues that we dealt with did not impact, well, at least that I dealt with on the show. Would have been a lot of people complaining about the hospital, about this, whatever the case may be. But we are now looking at issues of major significance. And people may be offended by that. Not that we're doing anything wrong, not that we're telling any lies, not that we're necessarily seeking to vilify anybody because we don't like them. What
Mhm.
we're doing as concerned, serious, and mature citizens is to bring to the table information on issues touching the lives of Barbadians in multiple ways. And we do that because, again, unlike a decade or two ago, we have not had two successive elections and official opposition. And people have seen the value of this and they have bought into it. And they have encouraged us to continue because what we are doing for them. And you can, when I first turned on, there were about 900 and something persons online on YouTube. I don't know what the number is now after the show.
We got
One
around
point 1,000, 1,100 and
Okay,
1,205
1100
here.
persons.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of
on
number.
YouTube. That's on YouTube alone.
Alone,
Yes.
right? That's YouTube because that's where I was watching. I didn't go. I wasn't on Facebook. So back to so in essence, what has prompted this legislation? I would say that there are a number of positive to the extent that there is a determination around the world and in the Caribbean and domestically that as we provide or as citizens have access, you need to have some kind of regulatory framework and somewhere in which where people are abusing systems that you can do something about it. And as I mentioned, I also recognize that, and this is where I talked about my looking at it from the perspective of international relations, foreign affairs. Barbados is, as I mentioned earlier, is part of a family of nations. And what we have done over the years is to get involved and be party to a number of international agreements where countries get together, whether as part of the Commonwealth, whether as part of the United Nations, which is the largest of the multilateral arrangements and gatherings of nations, whether we are part of a relationship between African, Caribbean, and Pacific and the European Union, or whatever the case may be. So really and truly, another aspect of this is that we're looking to comply with what is an international agenda. And because we are part of that. So in essence, this piece of legislation comes out of discussions and deliberations which said that we basically what the organizations or the countries jurisdictions have come together. So the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime is what informs a global agenda to put in place legislation to manage and to
Managed
address
cybercrime.
cybercrime. And
Yes.
basically, I made a note. I like to be able to read exactly. It says the first international treaty seeking this Budapest Convention on Cybercrime is the first international treaty seeking to address internet and computer crime. That's where they come up with the cybercrime term. And it aims to harmonize national laws improve investigative techniques, and increase cooperation among nations. Okay, so in essence, what they're saying is that we can do these things, in similar fashion. Now, in doing that, this now another piece of useful information. This convention came into force. It was in 2004. It was drawn up by the Council of Europe, and as I said, we have a particular relationship as part of the ACP, European Union arrangement. And so the whole question is, I would say, yes, we can subscribe to all of those things, but the question I ask, how far ought we to go as we seek to be in conformity with this international community? And in
Precisely.
fact,
Yes.
when we look at what is recommended, because part of what is recommended, and I recall Neil Harper saying on more than one occasion that some of the things that we have included are not included in the Budapest Convention. So the question we really have to ask ourselves, how does our piece of legislation compare with what is proposed? The other question I would ask is, now remember I said this thing came into existence, into force in 2004, which meant that you had a number of signatories to it and so on. That's 20 years ago. And in agreeing to be part of that, do we have to have what legislation did we have before? What are the weaknesses of the weaknesses of the existing legislation? Caswell has repeatedly spoken of our legislation in relation to defamation. Marcia raised the question of the Computer Misuse Act. And so the question is, are we seeking to bring pieces of legislation together in a single a single set of law, a single act, or are we seeking to make or put in place more draconian kinds of measures, which perhaps take us beyond what is recommended in that convention? And I took some time to look to see, since 2004, how many countries have probably ratified this, are signatories to the convention. Now, in terms of the ratification of the convention, Grenada, from what I saw as a member of CARICOM, because I looked, there are two things. I couldn't see the date. If I have to check the date when Grenada ratified, but as of the January 27, 2023, last year, 68 countries had ratified the convention. And Grenada was the only CARICOM member that I saw that had ratified. Within the Caribbean, you also had Dominican Republic. Now, a signatory, you sign because you believe. I'm trying to explain this because Trinidad is a signatory and is on the list of what you call observers and invited to accede to the convention. Now, you sign and then you ratify. Signature, I would say, to explain it in basically a person's language, is saying, I agree in principle. When you ratify, you're saying we have put in place all regulatory, whether it's legislative, institutional, or administrative arrangements to police the legislation and so on, which exists consistent with that convention. So in other words, if the Budapest Convention says these are the kinds of rules and regulations you should put in place, and when we ratify, we are saying, yes, we have in place those things and we can enforce. The previous step, which is the signature, you sign, you're saying that we believe this is important and we will go forward to make sure that we can put it in place and so on. So I think that in doing this, I believe that Barbados is preparing to ratify. But my question is, and I say it again, in doing this, are we going above and beyond to put in place extreme measures not called for by this convention and what people are thinking? So it really makes me ask a number of questions of the government. So you know, basically, are we really only doing this, or are we using this as an opportunity to
An
put on
excuse.
on books? Exactly. Are we creating an excuse to cut down on people's freedom of expression?
It
You
reminds
know,
me of the Samoa. It reminds me of the Samoa Agreement.
you know that
Reminds me of that.
because at the end of the day, you still have to recognize that you're an independent jurisdiction with a particular set of national realities. We're a small country, and so on. And when you talk about where face to face is important, so somebody puts this in place. In fact, just the discussion, and I can bet you it. It was interesting to hear. I think was it who mentioned, somebody mentioned speaking. I think Marcia was one of the people speaking to members of the clergy, different religious denominations, and people are saying they will leave it up to God and so on. But as
Caswell.
you correctly pointed out, I think Caswell
It was
and
Pastor Franklin.
Pastor Franklin, you know, that suggested that unlike his brothers and sisters in Christ, he is willing to fight this tooth and nail. And you see,
Well, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I grew up in the Anglican faith, and there was I remember attending a service. I think it was the 30th anniversary. It was an anniversary of my priest and a couple of guys, of other priests, so I can't call them guys, who were ordained at the same time. And the late Bishop Goodrich, Sion Goodrich, was preaching. And one of the things he said, as Anglicans, we must remember at all times that we are thinking Christians. And that is something that I use. In other words, I'm not just going to accept that, you know, okay, we are of the world, but we are in the world, but not of the world or whatever. We live in this world and we are going to be affected by the things that happen, such as legislation like this. And we cannot separate ourselves from the impact, because I always say, if we remain silent, silence is agreement, is assent. So in other words, if things are going around us and we choose to keep quiet, we are saying by our silence, it is okay.
Complicit. You're complicit by your silence.
You know, precisely. So we're complicit in the relation to this piece of legislation, when we start to look at the ridiculous fines and so on, and I want to digress. I've said a lot and I'm going to stop in a minute, Marcia. I listened this evening to the 7 o'clock news, it was, and there was an excerpt of a statement by the Minister of Agriculture. Marcia, remind me of the word that was inserted into the bill that you shared with me last night, if you remember.
Reckless.
Reckless. And I heard Minister of Agriculture said somewhere in his speech about reckless and obviously making kind of inferring that there were persons out there, because they were talking about us, you know, because it was a discussion about agricultural land going into housing. And he talked about people making reckless, I heard that word, but he obviously were referring to statements or comments. And it is interesting because the legislation inserted, remember there was an amendment in the House before the bill before it was passed in the House and sent up to the Senate. And that word was inserted. Well, I want to say to Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Inda Weir, and I think I can speak for the 5 of us who are on and all of us who come on this show as hosts, including frequent contributor Kimar Stewart, who is not here, Glenn Murray, who is not here. We do proper research. While my colleagues were sitting, for example, and speaking just now, between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and I listened. I went and I collected the information that I shared about the numbers and so on. I'm not going to come here and talk for talking's sake. So we're not reckless. And to make comments like that, you hurt my feelings. I wonder if I could sue you. You know, no, seriously. So,
You go wait.
You go,
there's a
Maxine.
man.
Maxine, I know you digressed, but it's funny. Someone just sent me a message, and I quote: "The Minister of Agriculture said tonight they do not deliberately use land set aside for agriculture for housing. That is one big lie. The land at Pool Plantation that they just put houses on is some of the best agricultural land in Barbados. It is an
Exactly.
area with some of the best rainfall in Barbados. What are they planning to do with the 5 plantations in St. John that are in bush?"
Yeah.
No, but you
Uh,
see, this is it.
just
And
in
we go and
passing.
look. Marcia went and with a team to look at it's Bannatyne. You
Yeah,
went and
Valentine.
you reported the luscious cane, and we saw pictures of that cane. I will simply stop Marcia by asking a question I raise it to the gentleman with my surname, but I now raise it to the Honorable Indavir. Can you share with us, so that I don't make reckless comments, pictures of the lovely thriving black belly sheep in Guyana, and show me them from if I presume that the farmers and the persons to whom they've been entrusted, to whose care they've been entrusted, can share with us images of those sheep thriving, the baby lambs that were born, the sheep that died, those that were probably eaten during a certain festival, and I can go on. So let us get real. We come here with evidence, but unlike a story that's important to us and we've touched on, where there's a concern that a decision, an initiative may not be as successful as we are told, there's no evidence to support that. But I rest my case. I may comment on some other things.
Maybe you will have to look for the pepper pot. That the
Well, speaking of the pepper pot, let's welcome Rose Corbin to the show tonight. Rose, such a joy. I have not forgotten you.
You got to regale me again tonight, Rose. I was quite pleased with your performance last night. It gave me an impetus to go and do some more checking
research.
Well, I haven't forgotten her coming around by the car park in Bridgetown with the pot in hand and the spoon in the other. I just can't get that image out of my head. Rose, welcome. It's such a joy to have you. Of course, we now have 3 ladies on the program, 3 wonderful ladies. So I think myself and Caswell would just step back and be gentlemen, right, Caswell?
I have always been. I have always been.
Good evening, everybody.
Yes. Good evening. Great presentation last night, Rose. Great. Tremendous. Go ahead.
I'm getting kind of feedback here. I don't know where it's from.
We're hearing you pretty good, though, so
I'm
you can proceed.
I'm hearing you very good. You coming back to you, but we're hearing you well. I'm hearing you well.
And
all turn off our mics while Rose speaks.
okay. Yes. What I want to, when you all were talking about land, I noticed in today's, just that this is my contribution, but in today's nation, can you hear me?
Right. There's an issue there, Rose, with the audio. So probably what you could do is to just leave and come back. That might be helpful if you just leave.
All right, so I was leave and come back.
Yes, and let's see if that might help.
It could be in the room that she is in. There sounds like a bit of an echo in the room, more than over the system itself. But again, Maxine, I really appreciate you in terms of addressing the matters with the Budapest Convention, because I was looking at it myself, and not in as much detail as I could, because it was just a few minutes before the program began. But I was looking at what I would call the overreach in terms of the government here. When you look at, and I was looking at countries that were signatures, and they're really focused on the whole matter of cybercrime. That is the fundamental issue that the Budapest Convention seems to be addressing, and the cooperation between countries in being able to restrict and limit cybercrime itself, and that type of thing, fraud and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm not an expert on the matter, but it seemed that was their focus.
Yes, in fact, there was one quote that I took down. I was just laughing at a comment there. Marcy can put it back later for me to get a good laugh. And the question I asked, why was the Budapest Convention created? And here's a quote. It reconciles the vision of a free internet where information can freely flow and be accessed and shared with the need for an effective criminal justice response in criminal misuse. So in other words, they're saying, look, ideally, citizens of the world should have access to free internet where information can flow freely and be accessed and shared with the need for an effective, but at the same time you do that, recognizing that there may be certain people who may want to criminally misuse it, and you should set it up. So when we look and we see how they seek to criminalize these things, what are they saying? I mean, is that misuse? If I feel somehow, I was watching television tonight, and I heard Caswell saying that if certain things were not done online, they can be done and they would not be criminal. So it's okay for the minister to criticize us and talk about reckless when we are being truly serious, mature, responsible adults and citizens looking after the public interest. So shouldn't I be offended? But if I get offended, I would say I'm very thin-skinned.
But you see, Maxine, I'm grateful for your intervention just now, because it spells out the reasons for the convention. The convention did not say to make criminal things that are not criminal when it happen on a computer. It didn't put nothing like that in there, because that's the point I was making with Freddie earlier.
Yes.
And things that, for instance, if I embarrass you, oh Lord, I get embarrassed all the time. You get embarrassed about something, and people, you're embarrassed when you see some people do certain things, even if you're not embarrassed for yourself. So why will no embarrassment could get you in jail for to get the person who embarrassed you 7 years in jail?
Well, but Caswell, so when I'm singing and somebody says that I sung horrible or something, you all hurt my feelings, and I'm going, and I need the money to pay for my next tour. So I'm going to sue you because you offended me.
No, you're not, Freddie. You're not getting
this is stupidity. The whole thing.
No, that's the problem. You are not going to be able to get a cent of that money. That money goes in the government coffers because it is a criminal offense. You are only going to be a witness.
True. I ain't going to get no money.
So
the lawyer's going to get it.
So previously, Caswell is saying that previously on the defamation, if you felt defamed, you probably can get money, right, Caswell?
Yes, you can get money.
Case, no.
But in this case, though, there are some that does not amount to defamation, but there's still breaches of this law. Now, if you are not defamed, but I'm hurt, my feelings are hurt, I'm embarrassed, that is not that would not make what I said that defamatory of you, but it can hurt your feelings. So if it hurt your feelings, it's a criminal offense, and it's such a criminal offense because look, people go jail for 4 years for killing people, and 2 years and get probation for killing people, and you can go and say something that embarrass you, and they can get 7. What kind of madness this is? Look around the courts when the time comes, and you will see people getting time served, and they're in jail for 2 years for chopping up somebody, maiming them. And you can tell, and then they tell you pay them $5,000 and an apology, and you go free. And now you can make me pay $70,000. I ain't creating a physical harm. I ain't do nothing to damage you physically, that stop you from working, because in some instances when you people maim somebody, you can't work again. And you can tell me I ain't do nothing, so but a fellow who do it can get 2 years, and I open my mouth and say something foolish, and you can lock at me for 7 years. What are they trying to say? The only thing that I can think of is that the young boy who spoke, he was speaking from their player book, and he was saying exactly what they intend to do: stop us from criticizing them. I see Rose is back, so let me shut up. I want to hear Rose.
Let's try it again, Rose. Let's see how we go this time.
We brought him down again. You should be fine.
Do you have a speaker on there to you? Are you a headphones? You have a headphone?
I believe it was my cell phone. I was listening before I.
Yeah, if you have a speaker, open speaker within proximity to the microphone, you will get that echo and potentially feedback. So let's try again.
Now?
Yeah, that sounds a bit better to me. To you guys, you sounds all right to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt Rose. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Ah.
Thank you.
You were commenting about an article you read
Yes.
in the newspaper before you had to go off.
I noticed in today's paper, yes, it was the Suriname president, addressing a meeting of his party, noted that the lands that the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries has reserved for agricultural projects are steadily being parceled out, and that the interim Minister of Land Policy and Forest Management had been instructed last Friday to reverse everything within a week. This thing is about land being parceled out. Unlike here, we don't hear our Minister of Agriculture standing up and say, don't parcel the land, but we're hearing now that the minister responsible for agriculture and land has been given a deadline to reverse the action of parceling out land. So that I think we should consider that. Anyhow, I've sent in some slides, just 3 or 4 slides, and it shan't be long.
Mhm. Yeah, the thing is that we're still here.
Could I see those slides?
The audio is still so choppy. I don't know if it's just on my part. Dr. Ferdinand, can you hear her clearly?
Yeah, I'm still hearing. If you're not listening to us through headphones, Rose, if you have an open device that you are hearing through a speaker, it would be feeding back through the microphone, and that's the problem. I think that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, and if we're having sound issues, it's almost 15 minutes to 10. I would not suggest that you start your presentation to wait until your sound is better quality so that we can actually hear what you're saying, because right now it's cutting in and out.
Yeah, we're getting a bit of a ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, Marcia. Yeah, Marcia.
Yes,
if it's possible, could I probably get Dr. Ferdinand to read the slides?
Okay, I see.
Or
Okay.
we can save it then for Wednesday.
I'm wondering if we just save it for, we probably should save it for Wednesday with the time. And
Yes,
let's
please.
see.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Because this is irritating.
Yes, we're not hearing
Yes,
very well.
please. All right. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Let's try it again for Wednesday. Yeah. Well, Dr. Ferdinand seemed to have dropped out. But I think he's, yeah. Well, it's 15 minutes to 10 o'clock. And let me just ask everybody who's watching, what, your thoughts about Saturday. Are we joining Saturday? Are we marching Saturday? Let me hear, somebody here is saying that we can, everyone here can share to all others through other social media platforms, and tell everyone they come in contact with. That is how we do it for events we're interested in. Yeah. So Queen Loyal is suggesting that we share via word of mouth. That because we've established here on the show that the radio ads are very, very expensive. So we're gonna need everybody to tell somebody and to bring people with you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think somebody had earlier suggested a number of social media platforms. I was just trying to find it, but of course, like TikTok, they call a couple of others I'm not familiar with, Snapchat or something like that. But if we can get it out on every possible social media platform, I think you have Instagram as well, Marcia. That and
Yes.
anyone who has an Instagram, well, of course, I think if you have Facebook, Instagram is a part of that aspect as well. So if they can do that, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, any of those, send it out to groups, even church groups, because I believe church groups need to. I'm certainly going to post it on our church group, that they can see it. Let them query me about it. As simple as that.
Yes. Well, Miss McLean, we are winding down tonight. I'm not. Yes. So, is there anything else on the cybercrime bill, Miss McLean, that you want to share with us? Unfortunately, we can't hear.
No, well, what I would say is that, as you correctly have been demonstrating, you, meaning collective you, everybody, is that this is a very serious piece of legislation. What I will undertake to do is to have a look at the Grenada legislation. You also raised the question about the Computer Misuse Act that is on the books in Barbados, and to look at the question why the changes, and in fact to try to determine if in fact the changes are primarily those areas that are contentious, because that might be one of the findings, that when we dissect the pieces of legislation here that support the same kind of penalizing of the behaviors, the negative behaviors that that constitute cybercrime, whether or not the parts that are contentious for most people are the additions, which would make it very interesting. So that kind of analysis I will try to do and look. So bearing in mind that I balance the amount of time I read at this point in time. So, but I have to do it now, because I will warn you that I will disappear again for some days after Wednesday. And then Ferdinand, as somebody said to me, I will come back and I'll be saying you clear.
There you're going to have me jealous, because I still have all these supports I have to get, and I want to be able to see clear too.
Oh, if
good.
I don't get glasses, I won't be able to drive. I need them for driving. Right.
Okay.
So
Okay. I don't feel too bad then.
Yes, thank you, Ms. McLean. Kenneth Noble is saying we must make the point that if they want to continue using the particular platform, they must join the march. And we have been saying that. So, Barbadians, I can guarantee you that once, if that bill is proclaimed, that's it for this show, because nobody's going to willingly come on here and not knowing whether You know, it's not even just the fees, just the 70,000. You're talking about 7 years.
Right.
So
You don't have 70,000. So I don't know about you, but you will have 70,000. So I guarantee to get locked up.
yeah, but I'm just saying that you know, it's you're muted.
No, Maxine, it isn't one or the other.
It's
one
both. That's
or
right.
the other, or both.
That's right. That's right.
So you can get the $70,000 and still get 7 years.
I can get a letter in my tail.
Yeah.
You know what? So what I want to ask people to do though is I follow on another device as well. But while you're talking, I watch the comments on another device.
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
far
me
I can
too.
see.
Me too.
I can see that we've had just 1,100 people on YouTube, but so far on YouTube we had 205 likes. You know, and I would prefer to see 1,100 likes. You know, so if the people who are listening now can give us some more likes, you know, that because that will help us to get this show into higher up and whatever they call it, the
algorithms would result.
I don't know now, but
would take it higher up. Yeah.
So I hear that happens. So at the same time, we got a few, you know, we just get 10, you know, and so I am pleading with you so that I can see more people can see us and hear us. Just hit the like button, and go from there. Right now that's nice at 205, and just quick so 10 people liked and we got 215 now. I want let's say 230. Going once, 230.
Yeah.
242 now. We got 242. Do we see 250? You know.
Yeah. But I think you know what you're saying there is so correct. Everybody has to get involved. We have to get involved. It's not going to happen just like that. And I just, while I wait on Mr. Franklin to share his thoughts, and I just wanted to say, read a little bit here from the 1937 disturbances of Barbados. Just a little bit, just to mention, it's National Heroes. What is it? National Heroes Day.
National Heroes Day yesterday.
National Heroes Day, right? I'm saying the right thing. National Heroes Day. And we know the heroes that we think of, you know, we know of, where those are national heroes. But there are some persons in media during the 1937 and riots, and we mentioned one of them was Clennell Wickham, and from the Weekly Herald, and he was a provocative writer. So you know what that means. He was giving them real hell, you know. And probably would have been locked up by the cybercrime bill if they had one in that time. There is a Israel Lovell, and he was a speaker, right? And he had to spend some time in Glenderry prison. That's a hero, as far as I'm concerned. The same Clennell Wickham. He paid a price. Of you know. He lost the case against Bailey, and Bailey was awarded £450, which was equivalent to 75 years' wages for the average laborer. So he paid financially. You know, these are heroes. Israel Lovell spent a term in Glenderry prison. F.G. Chase, who played a prominent role in the struggle for better conditions. He was a speaker. You saw mount platforms, and he would give speeches and so on. Dan Blackett, he was the editor of the Torch newspaper, and he was another man active in the 1930s. And so these are some of our heroes, and who stood up and who fought for this country. And so it wasn't just Clement Payne. When you think of the 1937 riots, you know, Miss McLean, we think of Clement Payne, but it wasn't just Clement Payne. There were lots of Barbadians.
It wasn't Clement Payne.
Excuse me?
It wasn't Clement Payne, you know. Clement Payne has more PR behind him than actual work. Clement Payne came to Barbados for a couple of weeks. Those people that you see Israel Lovell and they were all along. Clement Payne came, he made a few speeches and people get motivated and they wanted to put him out. So, and as a result of his deportation, because he was not Barbadian, and because he's Trinidadian, they put him on a boat, and that started the riot. But Clement Payne wasn't here, been an activist for anybody here in Barbados. It was the same Israel Level and those other people who actually were fighting on the ground. But, you know, His Excellency David Commission was pushing this Clement Payne because he wanted to get noticed. And all of a sudden, to please him, they made Clement Payne a hero in Barbados. He does not even qualify under the National Heroes Act to be a hero in Barbados. But, you know, I know a lot of people not want to hear that, but that is true. Read the act. You have to be a citizen of Barbados. He was not. And don't tell me that his parents were Barbadian, because in those days, they didn't have any provision that if your father was a citizen of Barbados, then you become one. That happened at independence. Right? So they came and they gave but because they had like for instance, Billy Miller wanted Sarah Ann Gill to be a hero. So to please Billy, they made him a hero. You know, everybody had a little play in it, they get their part. And the real heroes. We got Rihanna Barker, what the best called national hero of Barbados. I don't know why. But so these were more political heroes than real heroes.
I'm not even going there.
Yeah. So well, we're 5 minutes, Dr. Ferdinand. I guess that was my final word.
Well,
do you have any final words, Dr. Ferdinand?
Not at all, Marcia. My final words were said in the first 30 minutes of the program.
Okay.
Okay. My final words is to say we have 307 likes.
Yes, 307.
So we can, before we go off in the next 4 minutes, I want 400. You know, give me 400, and I'll be happy tonight. You know, I'm on 307. Just hit the button. You can't hit twice, I know, but I've been hitting twice too, and it wouldn't happen.
Well, I hit on two different devices. Marcia, can they run the because May does begin, I think, after tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Can they run the flyers for the health festival? I wondered if they could have just touched that. Can they just run the flyers for that in the last couple of minutes?
Yeah, I'll wait to see if Dave can do that. So, yes, guys, continue to hit that button, the like button.
It just shot up to 317, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
want 400. I want 400.
Sounds like he would be a good auctioneer. Keep going.
300, 400 going once, 400 going twice.
We got 317. We want to see 400. Do I get 400?
Let me see if I can like on my other device.
We got 328. We got 328. That's not too far from 400.
Well, I'm going on and liking too. I'm getting it all involved now. I'm going to go on and like. We have 3 minutes to go.
You know,
okay, so we're letting them know that the like button is under the video. We have a lot of elderly people who watch. So your like button is right there on the left-hand side underneath the video.
But the thumbs up, 341.
342.
You know?
Wonderful.
The thumbs up is the like button. So if you're not seeing it, just look for the thumbs up and hit it with the index finger.
351. You see that? People are learning. People are getting it really quick, really quick. That's good. We just have 49 more left. Just 49 more before we have 1 minute and 22 seconds.
That helps us to get this push up so that more people can see it. 352. Don't stop us here now. And I tell you, you can still like after the show. So more people can see it. 352. Because this show you can still go on and say us after. So if you didn't get the chance or you didn't find the like.
Well, I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm seeing 373.
But I can still get there.
I
Then.
was 373rd on my phone, okay?
I 380 for me now. I think I was asking for 400, but I better ask for 5.
Well, we only have 30 more seconds or less of the program left. It gives us just enough to 393. Come on. We just have 22 seconds. 22 seconds. Come on. 393. We just have 7 more to go. 7 more to go before we hit that magical 400. And 15 seconds. And counting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10 o'clock, 400. You see, we have a little humor.
Listen, we need to keep that. We need to keep that going each night.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that in your hands because it's up to you how far you want the show to go. But I think we can get a 500 in the next 5 minutes.
500.
No, we have 1,000. Well, of course, I can explain to you why we're not going to get 1,100. The mayor is listening. I heard cabinet listening. They're not going to like it.
Oh, dear me.
So I don't expect to get all the people that are on because we know some of them are not here listening. They're just here to see.
Well, since we know they're listening, let's say, guys, we love you. We'd love you to come on the show. We're really happy that you're listening. But if you have the intestinal fortitude to face the people of Barbados in an environment where you do not control it, you are welcome to come on the show and have a conversation with the people.
Marcia, last night, after I read my little WhatsApp thing, today I was getting WhatsApp messages telling me that they want me to send that thing to them. So I had to send it off a couple of times.
That was very well written. Very well written. Well, this is where we say good night to everybody.
Good
and
night.
we ask you guys.
Yes.
Rest well. I know you had a long day, Marcia.
Yes, I'm going to go get some rest.
Yes,
night,
424.
Unless we play our song. So
absolutely.
Hit it.
Hit it.
Hit
it. We need to tell them no song unless
pretending to be good, just pretending to be good. I pretending to be good, I just pretending to care about people. 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 Pretending, and I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. I'm pretending to be good. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people.
That's the road. Good night, people. Good night.